Chapter 23:16. Zhu turned around and faced Lu Yin. His expression was ugly and desolate. You knew that I would attack you? Lu Yin clasped his hands behind his back. Let's see. There aren't many places in the fifth mainland that can attack me. Zhu closed his eyes. You're the death god's successor. Kill me if you want. Coincidentally, the Yao Emperor woke up at this moment. Lu Yin turned around and looked at the Yao Emperor with interest. Hen Exen Zhu and the Hellworm all looked at the Yao Emperor. It was huge and it attracted the Hellworm's attention. Space was silent as everyone looked at the Yao Emperor. The Yao Emperor woke up and opened its eyes. The first thing it saw was the Hellworm, but it was confused at first. It thought that it had seen wrong, but then it stared at the Hellworm. The Hellworm glared and raised its claws, letting out an earth-shattering roar. At that moment, progenitor power erupted from its body and swept through space. Hen Xian and Zhu had come from the above heaven era and had seen more than one progenitor before. They were no strangers to progenitor power, but the Yao Emperor was different. He had never experienced the baptism of a progenitor's power, and when the progenitor power swept over him, his entire body trembled and he subconsciously curled up. His might as the ruler of the Celestial Beast Empire completely disappeared. As for the other beasts in the area, they didn't even dare to raise their heads. This was a biological instinct that not even the Yao Emperor could avoid. The Hellworm was satisfied as this was the effect that it had wanted. The beasts that it had tried to intimidate were all abnormal and unafraid of it. The more it thought about it, the more pleased it became, and its roars grew louder and louder. It even forgot about Lu Yin's existence. Lu Yin felt a headache coming on and he barked, "Shut up." The Hellworm was furious. Who would dare interrupt its might? It glanced around and saw Lu Yin and the slipper. It then shut up, not daring to make a single sound. The lesson from before had been engraved in its heart, and Lu Yin had purposely placed the broken blade above its head to make it feel threatened at all times. Coupled with its fear of the slipper, the Hellworm was now completely obedient to Lu Yin. The Yao Emperor trembled, not even daring to raise its head due to its fear of a progenitor. Lu Yin realized that he had overestimated the astral beast domain. No matter how intelligent the imperial tutor was or how powerful the Yao Emperor was, they were still beasts with instincts that were different from humans. The Eternals believed that humans had a deep-rooted weakness and that their emotions were their weaknesses. However, weren't these also human strengths? Giant beasts also had emotions, but their emotions were far less rich than that of humans and were easily suppressed by their instincts. If it were a human, even when facing an ancestor realm creature, they might not necessarily perform so badly under certain circumstances. Yao Emperor, Lu Yin said. The enormous celestial demon trembled and slowly raised its head. It did not look at Lu Yin but rather at the caged Wurm. The prison flood dragon continued to stare at it. Although it did not release the power of the progenitor realm, the suppression that came from the depths of its soul made it difficult for the demon emperor to breathe. "This is my mount," Lu Yin's voice rang out. It was only then that the Yao Emperor noticed Lu Yin and he was shocked. "Lu Yin. We meet again," Lu Yin said indifferently. The Yao Emperor stared at Lu Yin, and then he couldn't help but look at the caged Wurm. "The legends are true. Did you really subdue a progenitor?" Lu Yin's lips curled up. "Do you want to try and see if you can escape from its mouth?" These words caused the Yao Emperor's hair to stand on end. He could not help but look at the Hellworm again, suppressing his fear and despair. "What are you trying to do?" Lu Yin laughed. "Me? The humans established the Tianzong sect, but the gift they received during the opening ceremony was your threat. What do you think I'm trying to do?" The Yao Emperor's heart sank as he recalled what had happened before. He had lost the absolute path and there was nothing left in the astral beast domain that could threaten Lu Yin. At that moment he suddenly realized that Zhu Yi was directly behind Lu Yin, and he subconsciously looked over. "You want Zhu Yi to attack me?" Lu Yin asked. The Yao Emperor was shocked. How did he know? Zhu Yi bitterly sighed. As expected, even if he had not attacked earlier he would have been forced to do so by the Yao Emperor. Otherwise he would have been exposed and would not have even had a chance to attack. The Yao Emperor had just fainted and did not know what had happened. However, with Lu Yin's words and the fact that the caged Wurm was behind Zhu Yi, it was not difficult to guess what had happened. Zhu Yi had already attacked but had failed. Zhu Yi was a powerhouse that the Skymender Imperial Tutor had lobbied for over a year, and he had already formulated a plan to lure Lu Yin to the astral beast domain to kill him. However, the plan had failed before it had even begun. Most importantly, the absolute path had been lost and there was no way for them to make a comeback. "Alright, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you." Lu Yin's figure flashed and he appeared above the caged WRM's head. The caged WRM's progenitor power crashed down, one wave attacking Zhu Yi while the other wave attacking the Yao Emperor. The Yao Emperor instinctively felt fear and he did not have the will to resist. Zhu Yi wanted to resist but Hen Xen was staring at him. With the caged WRM around he had no chance. In the end, Zhu Yi was heavily injured and tossed into Mount Supreme while the Yao Emperor was captured by Lu Yin and brought to the Celestial Beast Empire. As for the absolute path, he left it to Hen Xen. Hen Xen might not be reliable but he was a human and there was no point in using the absolute path to threaten Lu Yin. As he watched the caged WRM leave, Hen Xen knew that from this moment on, the fifth mainland was completely under Lu Yin's rule and no one could resist. The astral beast domain welcomed the baptism of progenitor power. The caged WRM unleashed his progenitor power without restraint, shaking the astral beast domain and forcing countless creatures to submit to him. Lu Yin sat on the caged WRM's head and traversed the astral beast domain. He saw various regions and strange astral beast tribes. The caged WRM did not move very quickly, as Lu Yin wanted to see the astral beast domain clearly. From now on, this place belonged to him as well. The great realm of nothingness is up ahead. "It's where the void wanderers live," the Yao Emperor said weakly. He had been heavily injured by the caged WRM's attack, and he did not even have the strength to fight back against Lu Yin. Lu Yin looked ahead and saw many void wanderers floating about. The further he went, the more void wanderers there were. There was also a void wind in outer space that not even enlighters could withstand. The void wind was unique to the great realm of nothingness. Ghost Monkey had told Lu Yin about it, and Lu Yin had used his understanding of the great realm of nothingness to trick the Day-Night clan. If he remembered correctly, Ghost Monkey had said that the third Night King was in the great realm of nothingness. Since he was already here, he might as well take a look and see if the third Night King was there. The caged WRM raised its claw and tore the great realm of nothingness apart with its progenitor's power. Within the great realm of nothingness, the Void Wanderer ancestor was overwhelmed with shock as boundless fear descended upon it. It knew that this was the power of a progenitor and it was something that it could not withstand. However, it did not flee. As the great realm of nothingness was torn apart, the Void Wanderer ancestor appeared, and Lu Yin saw its enormous body once more. When he saw the Void Wanderer ancestor, Lu Yin recalled the scenes from the battlefield. If not for the Void Wanderer ancestor wearing progenitor Wuxiang's hide, the astral beast domain would not have been able to withstand Lan Xian's attack. However, Lu Yin did not need it now. Even if the Void Wanderer ancestor was wearing progenitor Wuxiang's hide, it would not be able to affect the caged WRM too much. The Void Wanderer ancestor's enormous body was not much smaller than the caged WRM's. The caged WRM looked at the Void Wanderer ancestor and subconsciously raised its claw to threaten it. Its eyes were filled with disdain. A creature that was not even a half-progenitor had no right to compete with it. The Void Wanderer ancestor fully displayed its submission. "It's just a bit bigger but it doesn't have much attack power. What a pity." At this point, Lu Yin had already seen through the Void Wanderer ancestor's true nature. It was just a humongous Void Wanderer that looked intimidating but was actually useless. The Void Wanderers are one of the top 10 races in the Astral Beast domain because of their large numbers. Other than that, they are useless. Lu Yin looked at the great realm of nothingness that had been torn apart and released his domain. All he could see were Void Wanderers, an endless number of them. His heart skipped a beat. These Void Wanderers were good stuff. Even sentinels who had just started cultivating could use them to travel through the void and increase their chances of survival. Wasn't this a living power vessel? Lu Yin's eyes lit up at this thought. These Void Wanderers could definitely revolutionize the cultivation world. He suddenly thought of another question and looked at the Emperor. Can these Void Wanderers travel through any space? Yes, the Emperor replied. What if that space requires an emissary to tear it apart? Lu Yin asked. The Emperor replied, Void Wanderers don't need to tear apart space. Their essence is to wander about in the void. Although it looks like they can travel through the void, it's actually just a form. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed as he thought of the astral tree domain. In that domain, only emissaries could tear through the void and travel through it. Even enlighters couldn't do that. However, if these void wanderers could help cultivators travel through the void, did that mean that whoever controlled the void wanderers would be able to control the void as well? Once an enlighter from the fifth mainland used the void wanderers, they could use their advantage of traveling through the void to escape even if they couldn't defeat an enlighter from the astral tree domain. With the help of the void wanderers, it would be easier to defeat an enlighter from the astral tree domain. This was just one aspect of the situation. If the humans had more void wanderers on the battlefield, their chances of survival would increase by more than 10 to 20%. Lu Yin's expression turned solemn as he sent a message to Lu Bujing. He wanted to use these void wanderers to protect the cultivators on the battlefield. There were many strange creatures in the astral beast domain such as sound monsters, monsters, dimensional beasts and so on. In the past, the astral beast domain had only thought of resisting, but now if these astral beasts cooperated with humans, how great would the changes be? On the other side, in the heavenly sect, Lu Bujing immediately contacted Lu Yin through a wireless GU. Lu Yin accepted the call. I thought you already knew, but humans and astral beast have been working together since the heavenly sect's era. During that era, the humans from the 5 mainlands liked to go to the 4th mainland to find suitable astral beasts to nurture. For example, the celestial demons could make up for some people's lack of spiritual force, while the void thunder beasts could make up for the lack of speed. There were also void wanderers, celestial ice phoenixes and so on. They were all suitable for cooperating with humans, Lu Bujing explained. In that era, it was enslavement, Lu Yin said in a low voice. He had heard the word enslavement many times. Aside from the Eternals using it to describe humans, it was also used by Hen Xian, Zhou Yi and the others. The heavenly sect had enslaved all races. Chapter 23:17. In the eyes of the above the sky sect, both the Eternals and astral beasts were nothing more than objects to be enslaved. This was especially true for the astral beasts, whose arrogance came from their bones. Even Lu Bujing was the same. This arrogance originated from the era of the above sky sect. That's right. To put it nicely, it's cooperation, but to put it bluntly, it's enslavement, Lu Bujing said. In our era, countless astral beasts were driven to the 4th mainland to make it easier for humans to find them. Some people liked to research and cultivate new astral beasts, so there were many types of astral beasts in that era. It was also easy for strange creatures to appear. As Lu Yin listened to Lu Bujing, the scene of the 4th mainland appeared in his mind. Lu Bujing was proud of being born in the era of the above sky sect, but to Lu Yin, this scene was very similar to when the Eternals wanted to enslave humans. The above sky sect enslaved astral beasts and the Eternals enslaved humans. They were essentially the same. Lu Bujing and the others could not feel the sorrow of the astral beasts of that era, but Lu Yin could. He had been to the Eternal Kingdom and seen enslaved humans. Astral beasts had their own thoughts and emotions, and in their eyes humans and the Eternals were probably the same. Lu Yin's boiling blood instantly cooled down. He looked at the Yao Emperor, who had also heard Lu Bujing's words. Even with its head lowered, Lu Yin could see its unwillingness, anger and helplessness. We haven't left that era for long, so we know a lot about this. If you need anything, I'll list it for you. Actually, our Lu family. Lu Bujing continued, but Lu Yin suddenly interrupted him. Third uncle, I need cooperation, not enslavement. The Yao Emperor suddenly looked up and stared at Lu Yin in shock. On the other end, Lu Bujing was also surprised. Is there a difference? Lu Yin did not know what to say and he felt a little depressed. We'll talk about it later. He ended the call. Lu Yin saw the Yao Emperor looking at him, but he did not say anything. A figure appeared in front of him. It was unkempt, as if it had not taken care of itself for many years. The person stumbled through space aimlessly. Even from a distance, Lu Yin could see the hesitation and confusion in this person's eyes. Looking at the person's black and white hair, Lu Yin guessed that this was the 3rd Night King. In the distance, the 3rd Night King looked around blankly. Where was the void wind? Where was the void wander? Where did it go? Why was the great realm of void gone? He had a blank look on his face. He didn't know where he should go. Memories kept surging into his mind. He had been asleep for so long that he couldn't remember many things. At this moment he saw the prison flood dragon. His mouth was wide open as he stared in shock. What was this thing? So huge. Not only was it enormous, but it also contained unimaginable power. Only now did he realize that this power made him feel fear that he had not felt for a long time. It was not a power that he could resist. His memories were clear, and his understanding of the universe was also gradually becoming clearer. He looked at the prison flood dragon and wondered if it was a half-martial ancestor creature. The third Night King? Lu Yin's voice sounded. The third Night King was just about to flee when he heard Lu Yin's voice and looked over in confusion. Who's there? Lu Yin looked at the figure in front of him with a complicated expression. It really was the third Night King. Ever since the first time the ghost monkey had told him this name, how many times had he said it? If not for this person, the third Night King would have long since been captured by the Day-Night clan. If not for using this person as bait, the third Night King would not have been able to reach this point. He was a stranger that Lu Yin had never met in his entire life of cultivation, yet he was the most familiar with. Ever since he had dealt with the Day-Night clan, Lu Yin had completely forgotten about this person. He had not expected to see this person while passing by the great realm of nothingness. Come here, Lu Yin said. The third Night King did not dare to approach the prison flood dragon, but Lu Yin's words made it so that he did not dare to leave. More importantly, how did this creature know him? He had thought that it was the prison flood dragon who had spoken to him. He thought about it and then braced himself as he walked over. He stopped not too far away from the prison flood dragon. He bowed respectfully. Greetings, Senior. The prison flood dragon stared at him with wide eyes, and it subconsciously wanted to bare its fangs and claws. Lu Yin walked over. Third Night King, long time no see. The third Night King looked at Lu Yin in shock. You're a human. Lu Yin smiled. That's right. The third Night King was at a loss. How could this person appear in the astral beast domain? Who are you? Why do you know me? Did you betray humanity? Lu Yin looked around. I'm Lu Yin. You don't know me, but I'm very familiar with you. You've helped me a lot. The third Night King was even more confused. You're an old friend of the Day-Night clan? Lu Yin calmly looked at the third Night King. I conquered the Night King bloodline. The third Night King's eyes went wide and he stared at Lu Yin in disbelief. What did you say? I said that I conquered the Night King bloodline because I wanted to save the Day King bloodline. The third Night King's face went pale as he stared at Lu Yin, not knowing how to react. Hatred? Or submission? If the prison flood dragon had not been there, he would have attacked immediately. However, the prison flood dragon's existence made him unable to move, and the fear that came from deep within his bones made him want to submit. Go back. You have a choice. You can follow the second Night King and join my sect, or you can become a wandering cultivator. With that, Lu Yin returned to the prison flood dragon's head and rode it back to the celestial beast empire. The third Night King kept thinking about the second Night King's name. The second Night King wasn't dead? When they had been forced by the Hall of Honor to enter the astral beast domain and fight to the death with the celestial beast empire, the first Night King had died and the third Night King had been trapped in the great realm of nothingness. But the second Night King was still alive? And had even submitted to this person? He looked in the direction of the human domain and his memories grew clearer. He had to return to the human domain immediately to find out what had happened. The third Night King's appearance had put an end to Lu Yin's past self. This person was like a mirror that reflected his weak and helpless self, but when he truly looked into the mirror, he realized that he had become incomparably powerful. The third Night King had missed an era where Lu Yin's legend was born. A few decades ago, Lu Yin had stepped onto the path of cultivation. The fifth mainland situation had gradually unfolded before his eyes like a magnificent painting. At first he had only seen the weaves, then the outer verse, the astral river, the inner verse, the starfall sea and so on. At that time he had also learned about Ironblood Weave and the astral beast domain, which had been at war with the human domain for countless years. During the astral combat tournament he had participated in his first border war as a student. At that time he had never dreamed that he would one day conquer the entire astral beast domain. How many cultivators were there in the human domain? How many experts were there? There were too many to count. Even with Lu Yin's extraordinary talent, he had never imagined that he would one day be the one to conquer the astral beast domain, and he would be the only one to do so. The path of cultivation was long, and he had experienced many life and death situations. He had fought against the astral beast domain several times, and he was no stranger to the powerhouses of the astral beast domain. However, he was unfamiliar with the celestial beast empire, as he had never been to this place before. Could astral beasts build cities? This was a question that Lu Yin had only answered when he saw the celestial beast empire. The celestial beast empire was located at the center of the astral beast domain, and it was also known as the celestial beast weave. The entire weave was surrounded by tributaries, and each tributary had mountains, plains, and even cities. Astral beasts could take human form, so it was not difficult to understand why these cities had appeared. What surprised Lu Yin was that these tributaries were exactly the same as the Starsibyl sects, except that they were many times larger. If not for his domain, he would not have been able to discover them. When the caged Wurm descended, countless astral beasts throughout the celestial beast weave roared at the sky. The demon emperor was in pain, as this was the sound of submission to an outsider. The entire celestial beast empire was expressing its submission to Lu Yin. In the face of a progenitor's strength and a dozen or so half-progenitors, the celestial beast empire was powerless to resist. The tributaries had all sorts of astral beasts that lived in the water, and all of them floated to the surface and bowed in the caged Wurm's direction. There were numerous mountains and plains, and there were enormous astral beasts as well as tiny ones. All of them bowed in the caged Wurm's direction. There was a huge city on each of the circular tributaries. They were like the links of the tributaries. The cities were filled with giant beasts or people who lived in human form. These people had all betrayed the human domain. However, at this moment they also looked terrified and bowed in the direction of the caged dragon. The entire celestial beast weave converged into a single voice. Greetings, Lord Lu Yin. Greetings, Lord Lu Yin. Greetings, Lord Lu Yin. Throughout human history, who had been able to make the astral beast domain submit? Who had been able to make countless astral beasts submit? No one had been able to do so outside of the era of the astral beast domain, and even then the astral beast domain had been ruled by a progenitor. The astral beast domain had suppressed the fourth mainland, and since then the humans had never been able to subdue these astral beasts, not even during the era of the Daoist sect. Lu Yin had ridden the progenitor caged Wurm and held the demon emperor hostage. He had descended upon the astral beast domain with an unparalleled might, opening a new chapter in the astral beast domain's history. Even though he had experienced the founding ceremony of the New Heavens sect, personally executed Wang Si and faced Xianxia, he couldn't help but feel proud at this moment. He had suppressed the astral beast domain, an old enemy that had been at war with the human domain for countless years. Now they had lowered their heads in front of him. No need for formalities, Lu Yin said. His voice spread through the entire celestial beast weave with the help of his domain, reaching every astral beast and every person's ears. Not all astral beasts had interacted with Lu Yin before, but they had all heard of his legends. These two words made their hearts tremble as they truly felt that Lu Yin had conquered this place. A group of people approached from the front, led by Imperial Tutor Skymender. Behind him were Zhou Xian, Su Qing, Feng Lin, and the rest of the astral beasts in human form. These astral beasts represented the top echelons of the astral beast domain. 6 patriarchs of the top 10 races on the heavenly beast list had come. The patriarch of the death insect race was a very short old man, less than half a meter tall. His eyebrows were white and hung down to the soles of his feet. The patriarch of the Na Yuan beast race was a man who was only a meter tall and looked unremarkable. The patriarch of the Flying Flames race was a person with long tricolored hair. It was hard to tell whether he was a man or a woman. The patriarch of the Guai race was a thin but tall man in a semi-invisible state. Chapter 23:18. Greetings, Lord Lu Yin. Skymender, Imperial Tutor, and the rest appeared in front of the Hellworm and bowed when they felt its terrifying pressure. The prison flood dragon was arrogant. It raised its claws and bent them, looking rather mighty. Lu Yin grabbed the Yao Emperor and threw him down. Zhou Xian hurriedly caught it and angrily glared at Lu Yin. Lu Yin happened to be looking at Zhou Xian at the same time, and when he saw Zhou Xian's unfriendly gaze, his eyes turned cold. The next moment the caged Wurm roared, and a progenitor's power swept through the celestial demon weave. The ring-shaped tributaries boiled, the mountains collapsed, and the cities collapsed. Countless starry sky behemoths trembled in fear and despair. The Imperial Tutor was shocked. Please calm down, Lord Lu Yin. Zhou Xian's eyes were filled with terror, and he slowly lowered his head under Lu Yin's gaze. The Yao Emperor panted heavily and sorrowfully stood up. He faced Lu Yin and bowed as well. "Please calm down, Lord Lu Yin. Please calm down, Lord Lu Yin." Many of the beasts bowed and pleaded. As far as he could see, none of the beasts dared to raise their heads to meet his gaze. He was above all of the beasts, and this was a very satisfying feeling. The Lu family must have felt this way back then. "Who set up the celestial demon weave?" Lu Yin asked. Imperial tutor Bu Tian's eyes flashed and he stepped forward. "Reporting to the Daoist, I did it." Lu Yin looked at the imperial tutor. "I understand now. It's been so many years, but no one from the human domain has come to the sky demon weave. Has no one noticed that the layout here is exactly the same as the Star Sibyl sex?" Imperial tutor Skymander said respectfully. "No one cares about the celestial demon weave's arrangements." Lu Yin looked at the imperial tutor. His meaning was clear. Even if humans had come to the celestial beast empire before, they wouldn't care about the layout here. Humans looked down on astral beasts from the bottom of their hearts. "Let's go, Lord Shifter Emperor. Show me your throne," Lu Yin said with interest. Not long after, Lu Yin appeared in an ancient and domineering palace. Regardless of whether it was humans or beasts, they all relied on external objects to threaten him. The Shifter Emperor's palace was filled with dominance and majesty, enough to deter anyone who came here. Lu Yin was currently sitting on the Yao Emperor's throne, and below him were Skymander, Imperial Tutor, and the others. Reporting to the Daoist, the Astral Beast Domain's Celestial Beast Empire has submitted. There are a total of 26 alliances in the Astral Beast Domain that have submitted. The Imperial Tutor respectfully reported everything that had happened in the Astral Beast Domain. Lu Yin listened quietly. Now that he had taken control of the Astral Beast Domain, he had gained a considerable number of troops and experts under his command. Within the Astral Beast Domain, there were no less than 30 envoys, and there were more than 300 enlighters. As for cultivators ranging from explorers to hunters, there were several thousand of them, and this was the result of several major battles. It was no wonder why the Astral Beast Domain had been able to fight against the human domain for so many years. Aside from the powerful astral beasts, what Lu Yin cared about the most was resources. He had heard that the Astral Beast Domain's resources were barren, and the Sixth Mainland had also invaded the Astral Beast Domain in the past, but they had not gained anything. The lack of resources referred to the entire Astral Beast Domain, and Lu Yin did not believe that those astral beasts were lacking in resources. Everything else aside, the Celestial Beast clan should have quite a large collection of star essence. Lu Yin's eyes lit up at the thought of this. The technocracy did not care about star essence and could still give him 1,000,000,000,000 star essence, but the Astral Beast Domain would definitely give him more. Lu Yin listened to the Skymander Imperial Tutor's report from Celestial Yao Imperial Palace. In the outside world, countless beasts were restless as they awaited their fate. Although the Astral Beast Domain didn't know much about history with the arrival of cultivators from the Above Heaven era, the Astral Beast Domain's history had changed. However, they also brought with them a lot of news about the era of the Above Heaven sect, which included the Fourth Mainland. That era had been the darkest era for the astral beasts. They had been enslaved by humans and reduced to becoming their mounts. This was not something that they wanted to face, and even though the Fourth Mainland had also been overseen by an extreme progenitor during that era, this fact could not be changed. Within a ring-shaped tributary city, the city had been split in two due to the Hellworm's might. Yao Gu calmly stood where the city had been split apart and looked down at the crack in the city. It had changed. In just a few decades, everything had changed. He could not accept the fact that the Astral Beast Domain had been conquered. He could not accept the fact that it had been conquered by that person. He was no stranger to Lu Yin. Back when he had been a guest in the Astral Beast Domain, he had obtained a Mavis Bank crystal card, which had been stolen by Lu Yin. Yao Gu had even sent the Void Thunder Beast to the human domain to punish Lu Yin, but it had been stopped by the Astral Combat Academy. At that time, Lu Yin had been nothing more than an ant that could be destroyed with a flip of a hand. Yao Gu had never imagined that Lu Yin would bring such a calamity to the Astral Beast Domain today. Don't think about it. This is a fact that not even the Yao Emperor can change, so there's no point in us thinking about it. Curse Wind sighed as he walked over to Yao Gu's side. Yao Gu looked at him. If you were given another chance to return to the battlefield in Iron Blood Weave, what would you have done? Cursewind's gaze turned frighteningly cold, but it only lasted for a moment. What's the point of thinking about such useless things? Now that things have come to this, we'll just have to see what he's going to do. Back in Ironblood Weave's battlefield, Cursewind had fought Lu Yin once. However, at that time, Lu Yin had needed to rely on external items to resist Cursewind. Cursewind had not taken Lu Yin seriously, so he had not used his full strength. If Cursewind had been given another chance, he would have dragged Lu Yin down with him even if he had been annihilated. Unfortunately, time could not be reversed, and even if it could, it was not something that they could do. Many in the Astral Beast domain had the same thoughts as Yao Gu, such as Tian Ho, who had fought Lu Yin during the Tournament of the Strongest. Su Qing also hated himself for not using his full strength back then. Even if it meant sacrificing his last Astral Beast, he would have taken Lu Yin down with him. Violet Snow, who had led her team to the human domain to participate in the Tournament of the Strongest, would have been able to crush Lu Yin with a single finger. Feng Jiu Monster Loach, the Void Wanderer ancestor, and so on and so forth. Countless astral beasts in the Astral Beast domain who had crossed paths with Lu Yin were now filled with regret. Lu Yin naturally knew about this. He was currently relying on the Hellworm to suppress the Astral Beast domain. Rather than relying on the Hellworm, he was relying more on instinct, the primal instincts of these astral beasts. However, as time passed, this instinctive fear would fade, and he would not truly control the Astral Beast domain. Thus, the next step was to completely merge the Astral Beast domain and the human domain. The Yao Emperor and Imperial Tutor Skyminder definitely could not remain here. Lu Yin had to arrange for someone else to come to the Astral Beast domain, but who should he arrange? Heng Xin could not possibly leave such an unruly person here, as that would be the same as giving Lu Yin a chance to escape his control. Thus, there were only a few suitable candidates. Unfortunately, Progenitor Chen's power could not extend to the Astral Beast domain. Otherwise, anyone would have been able to oversee the Astral Beast domain. A single thought from Progenitor Chen would be able to eliminate all unstable factors. Lu Yin's suppression of the Astral Beast domain had caused huge waves in the human domain. Countless people looked towards the east in excitement. Once the Astral Beast domain was conquered, the human domain would double in size. At that time, the humans would truly unify the fifth mainland. Within the Above the Sky sect, the ghost monkey had fallen silent after learning that Lu Yin had used the Hellworm to sweep through the Astral Beast domain. No one could find him. A series of events. Over the next few days, Lu Yin listened to Imperial Tutor Skyminder's reports on the Astral Beast domain. He now had a clearer understanding of the Astral Beast domain. In general, the Astral Beast domain was controlled by the Celestial Beast Empire, but that did not mean that they completely ruled over the Astral Beast domain. It was just like how the human domain obeyed the Hall of Honor on the surface, but that did not mean that the Hall of Honor ruled over the entire human domain. There were all sorts of alliances in the Astral Beast domain. When Lu Yin had participated in the Border War for the first time, he had encountered the Desolate Beast Alliance. It was an alliance of 7 enlighter astral beasts, and their leader was known as the Soaring Flamer Emperor. He was originally from the Soaring Flamer clan, but he was a traitor and called himself the Soaring Flamer Emperor. There were 26 such alliances in the Astral Beast domain, but all of them had submitted to Lu Yin. The threat and despair that the caged WRM brought was too great. Stop. Lu Yin interrupted Imperial Tutor Skyminder. Imperial Tutor Skyminder looked at him in confusion. Lu Yin leaned forward. Imperial Tutor, are you interested in becoming a teacher in the Above the Sky sect? Imperial Tutor Skyminder calmly looked at Lu Yin. I will obey your orders. Lu Yin's lips curled up and he looked at the Beast Emperor. Jue betrayed me and will never appear again. The Above the Sky sect has 8 heavenly gates and I do not wish to change them. Are you willing to oversee one of them? Change the Undying Gate to the Heavenly Beast Gate. The other astral beasts looked at each other. Lu Yin wanted to take away 2 of the Astral Beast domain's strongest powerhouses. This way, no matter what the Astral Beast domain did, no one would be able to resist Lu Yin. The Beast Emperor knew that he had no other choice, and that Jue would never appear again. The meaning behind Lu Yin's words was simple. If he did not agree, then he would never appear again. I'll leave it to you, Daozi, the Beast Emperor said dejectedly. Lu Yin was satisfied. Don't worry, the leaders of the Heavenly Gates and the teachers hold the highest positions in the Above the Sky sect. With your cultivations, You will definitely have a place in the Above the Sky sect. After saying that, Lu Yin looked at the others. I plan to form another army in the Above the Sky sect, and it will be called the Astral Beast Army. There will be 20 envoys, 200 enlighters, 5,000 explorers and hunters, and 10 million astral beasts. I hope that everyone will support me. The astral beasts did not object. When the Hellworm had unleashed his progenitor's power and swept through the astral beast domain, this outcome had already been decided. If the astral beast domain ruled over the human domain, they would have done the same. We will follow your instructions, Daoist, the group of astral beasts replied respectfully. Zhou Xian was unwilling to accept this, and he couldn't help but look at Lu Yin again. Lu Yin smiled. Right, there are also many astral beasts that are difficult to tame. The 26 alliances are an example. They might have submitted now, but that doesn't mean that they will submit in the future. Thus, there must always be someone overseeing this place. What do you think of the Skyblade sect? Imperial Tutor Skyminder asked. Daoist, are you talking about Sect Master Ling Qing? Lu Yin nodded. Imperial Tutor Skyminder respectfully replied. Sect Master Ling Qing is a half-ancestor from the era of the Above the Sky sect. He is one of the leaders of the 12 heavenly gates and has a certain chance of becoming a progenitor. If he suppresses the astral beast domain, then no one will dare to oppose him. It's good that you agree, Imperial Tutor. It's decided then. Aside from these matters, there are still many other matters that need to be taken care of, but I won't leave them to anyone else. There's a place that I hope you can take me to, Lu Yin said with a calm gaze. It's where the human-shaped source box is stored. Imperial Tutor Skyminder and the Beast Emperor were shocked, and they both looked at Lu Yin. How did you know? Chapter 23:19. Lu Yin smiled when he saw the Imperial Tutor and the Yao Emperor's shocked expressions. How would I know that I needed to report this to you? We wouldn't dare. Of course you can go if you want. Imperial Tutor suppressed his shock and answered. The Emperor lowered his head, but his eyes flickered. Only a few people in the astral beast domain knew about that place, and most of them were guarding it. Only he and Imperial Tutor Skyminder were outside. How did Lu Yin know about it? Feng Lin and the other astral beasts were puzzled, as they had no idea where the human-shaped source box was hidden. The Emperor and Imperial Tutor were hiding something from them, but how did Lu Yin know? Lu Yin told the other astral beasts to wait here while he followed Imperial Tutor Skyminder and the Emperor to the location of the human-shaped source box. The Hellworm naturally followed. Truthfully, Lu Yin was quite wary of Imperial Tutor Skyminder, especially since he had the Book of Destiny. Where's your Book of Destiny? Lu Yin asked. Imperial Tutor Skyminder respectfully replied. I left it where I'm staying. My lady has been attacking me with the power of destiny, so it's inconvenient to have it with me. Let me take a look, Lu Yin said. After Imperial Tutor Skyminder left, he contacted Starsabil with a wireless goo and asked her to tell her not to attack. In the Innerverse, Fate Daughter frowned, as this was a rather uncomfortable feeling. Lu Yin had told her not to attack and she would not attack. Even during the Above Sky sect era, ordinary progenitors would not have been able to order her to do so. She was Fate Daughter, the successor of Destiny. Unfortunately, she had to listen to Lu Yin in this era or no one would help her. During the Above Sky sect era, she could rely on her power as a Fate Daughter to intimidate progenitors. Now Lu Yin could easily kill her with progenitor Chen's power, so she did not want to fight him. However, the Book of Destiny belonged to Destiny, and it could not be controlled by an outsider. Skyminder? This astral beast had to hand over the Book of Destiny. Lu Yin did not care what Fate Daughter thought. He was the absolute ruler of this region. Imperial Tutor Skyminder carried a huge book over. Lu Yin looked at it and saw that it was exactly the same as Xiaoxi's book. Open it. Imperial Tutor Skyminder opened the book and looked at Lu Yin. Can you see the words? Lu Yin shook his head. What do you mean? Imperial Tutor Skyminder, no living being other than me can see the words. Lu Yin was puzzled. There's such a thing? The Imperial Tutor hurriedly said, Daoist, if you don't believe me, you can ask the Fate Maiden. Lu Yin was skeptical. I'll ask the Fate Maiden. Let me see. The Imperial Tutor handed the book over to Lu Yin. He wasn't worried that Lu Yin would snatch it away from him. With the current situation, if Lu Yin wanted it, he wouldn't be able to stop him. Caged Wurm followed Skyminder Imperial Tutor in a certain direction. Lu Yin flipped through the pages on his head, his eyes flickering. He could not see the words, but that did not mean that Xianxia could not. Imperial tutor Tian didn't know about Xiaoxi's existence. He purposely didn't believe that he couldn't see the words so that he wouldn't be suspicious. Right now he knew where the 3 books of fate were. One was here, one was with Xiaoxi, and the last one was with Xianxia. As the successor of Fate, Lady of Fate did not have a single book. Now that she knew about the heaven-mending Imperial Advisor's book, she would definitely think of a way to steal it. State Preceptor, can you give this book to me? He kept his head down as he flipped through the pages, not even looking at the Imperial tutor. Imperial tutor Tian's expression did not change. If you like it, then just take it. Lu Yin looked at him. He smiled. You don't feel bad about it? Imperial tutor Tian smiled. There's no difference whether it's in your hands or mine. Just take it. Lu Yin placed the book at his feet. If that's the case, then it would be impolite for me to refuse. He had only wanted to test Imperial tutor Tian and see how the Imperial tutor would refuse, but the Imperial tutor Tian had agreed too quickly. It must be because he was sure that Lu Yin couldn't see the words, and there was no point in giving the book to Lu Yin. Wait, if the Imperial tutor knew about Lady of Fate, then why was he so willing? Lu Yin looked at Imperial tutor Tian, suppressing his doubts. Imperial tutor Tian's expression did not change, and it was impossible to tell what he was thinking. It's here, the Imperial tutor reminded. Lu Yin hurriedly had caged Wrum stop and look ahead. His domain spread out and he sensed a hidden space. Imperial tutor Tian stepped forward and arrived in the void. He raised a hand, causing the void to ripple as a dark spatial crack appeared. Lu Yin was not unfamiliar with this crack, as he had seen it when he had first entered the Yin Guai's body. At that time the Yin Guai and the Sound Guai had come out to kill the astral beasts that had accidentally wandered into this place. What had left the deepest impression on Lu Yin were the giant statue and the human-shaped source box, as well as the Sound Guai's words. Imperial tutor Tian had warned them that if this place was exposed, 2 tribes would be wiped out. The 2 tribes were the Yin Guai and the Sound Guai. These 2 tribes had quite a high status in the astral beast domain, but they would be wiped out just because this place was exposed. One could imagine how important this place was to Imperial tutor Tian. Dozy, please, the Imperial tutor said respectfully. Lu Yin frowned, and Imperial tutor Tian thought that Lu Yin was still worried. He hurriedly stepped into the spatial crack and waited for Lu Yin inside. Lu Yin was not worried at all. He had only hesitated because Imperial tutor Tian had been too straightforward. He had thought that Imperial tutor Tian would create a fake place to fool him, but this place was real. It was the same place that Lu Yin had learned about when he had first entered the Yin Guai's body. With that in mind, Lu Yin no longer hesitated and stepped into the spatial crack. There were a total of 5 envoy-level astral beasts in the spatial crack, and one of them was the Yin Guai that Lu Yin had merged with. Aside from these 5, Lu Yin also saw many human-shaped source boxes. There were so many of them that they filled the entire space. Finally, he looked in another direction where there was a giant statue. Even when he had merged with the Yin Guai's body, he had only been able to see the statue's 4 limbs. Now he could see it with his own eyes. Behind Lu Yin, Imperial tutor Tian was even more shocked when he saw Lu Yin look directly at the statue. Not only did he know about this place, but he also knew the statue's location. How did he know? Ever since this place had been established, no astral beast that had entered to guard this place had been allowed to leave alive. Any astral beast that tried to investigate or approach this place had been immediately executed. Only Imperial tutor Tian and each generation of Yao emperors were allowed to enter. In other words, aside from Imperial tutor Tian and each generation of Yao emperors, no one else could have known about the layout of this place. How did this person know? Imperial tutor Tian did not believe that this was a coincidence. He was more inclined to believe that Lu Yin already knew about this place. He could not accept this conjecture, but he had to accept it. Lu Yin did not know that his subconscious actions had caused Imperial tutor Tian to notice a problem. Imperial tutor, why are you collecting these human-shaped source boxes? Imperial tutor Tian respectfully replied, since you know about this place, I will not hide it from you. The purpose of collecting these human-shaped source boxes is to unlock source boxes. Lu Yin laughed and looked at Imperial tutor Tian. Imperial tutor, are you joking with me? These source boxes are naturally used to unlock source boxes. Imperial Tutor Butian replied, "It's not just about unlocking them. It's that simple." Imperial Tutor Butian hesitated for a moment and then slowly asked, "Does Dao Child know where these human-shaped source boxes came from?" Lu Yin shook his head. He had seen these source boxes when he had traveled through space-time, and most of them had come from the Fourth Mainland. Many of them had appeared after the Fourth Mainland had been destroyed. Of course, they might not have come from the Fourth Mainland, as Lu Yin had only seen the Fourth Mainland shatter. These human-shaped source boxes are humans who cultivate a unique technique, Imperial Tutor Butian solemnly explained. Lu Yin was astonished. A unique technique? Imperial Tutor Butian nodded. That technique is called the Origin Stone Technique. Cultivating the Origin Stone Technique will not increase one's battle prowess, nor will it increase one's cultivation. Its only use is to protect oneself. These people are powerhouses who had no choice but to cultivate the Origin Stone Technique in order to protect themselves after their mainlands were destroyed. Lu Yin looked at the human-shaped source boxes and honestly did not believe it. They're all humans? Yes. If they're humans, then why are you collecting them? Imperial Tutor Butian replied, "I won't hide it from you, Dao Child. My astral beast domain is much weaker than the human domain, so I plan to unlock these people and use their strength to deal with the human domain." Lu Yin blinked and looked at Imperial Tutor Butian. Imperial Tutor Skyminder continued, "These are humans, and if they try to unlock the source box rashly, they won't be able to help the astral beast domain. However, the creator of the Origin Stone Technique left behind a matching source box array known as the Inverse Origin Array. Whoever uses the Inverse Origin Array to unlock the source box cultivators of the Origin Stone Technique will be able to place a controlling brand in their body. The creator of the Origin Stone Technique had ill intentions, so he was killed. However, the Origin Stone Technique has been passed down. Under normal circumstances, no one would be willing to cultivate it, but in a situation of certain death, the Origin Stone Technique is the only way to survive." Lu Yin recalled the human-shaped source boxes that had flown out when the Fourth Mainland had been destroyed. What Imperial Tutor Butian had said didn't seem to be too far off. Those human-shaped source boxes had appeared when the mainland had been destroyed, so it made sense that they had wanted to survive. "You have the Inverse Origin Array?" Lu Yin asked. This was the only reason why Imperial Tutor Butian was collecting these source boxes. Imperial Tutor Butian nodded. "Yes. You're an Origin Array Master?" Lu Yin was astonished. Imperial Tutor Butian looked at Lu Yin. "Origin Array Master." Lu Yin was stunned. "You're an Origin Array Master?" "Yes." Lu Yin sized up Imperial Tutor Butian. "How come I've never heard of you before?" The human domain and the astral beast domain had been at war for many years. Ever since the astral tree domain had been separated, this war had never stopped. Truthfully speaking, no one knew how long Imperial Tutor Butian had lived, but no one had ever heard of him being an Origin Array Master. Did the astral beast domain have an Origin Array Master? Imperial Tutor Butian respectfully asked, "Have you ever seen me on the battlefield? What's the human domain's record of my cultivation?" Lu Yin frowned. The human domain's records of Imperial Tutor Butian were similar to the Starsibil sect's divination. There were no records of anything else. For example, Imperial Tutor Butian was clearly a half-step ancestor, but the human domain's records stated that the astral beast domain only had one half-step ancestor, which was the Yao Emperor. Lu Yin suppressed his shock. "So with the Inverse Origin Array, as long as you can unlock these human-shaped source boxes, they will be under your control?" "Yes." "Then why haven't you been able to unlock any of them?" Chapter 23:20. The Imperial Tutor replied, "Human-shaped source boxes are very difficult to unlock. They aren't true source boxes, but they use the Origin Stone Technique to transform themselves into source boxes. Thus, they can't be unlocked normally and require a reverse origin formation. However, the reverse origin formation isn't simple either, as it needs to be adjusted according to the celestial bodies, time of day, position, blood energy, and so on. I've had 2 chances to set it up over the years, but it was delayed due to various reasons." The Imperial Tutor's explanation was reasonable. Lu Yin took out the wireless goo and asked Lu Bujing in front of the Imperial Tutor if he had heard of the Origin Stone Technique. Lu Bujing's answer was similar to what the Imperial Tutor had said, but he didn't mention the reverse origin formation. Only a few Ancestor Realm experts know about the existence of the inverse origin formation, because the one who created the origin stone technique was an Ancestor Realm expert, and the one who killed him could only be an Ancestor Realm expert. I only obtained it by chance, and the others only know about the origin stone technique and that something bad will happen if one cultivates it. However, no one knows the specifics. Heaven-mending Imperial Advisor explained. With the Imperial Tutor's intelligence, even if this was a lie, he wouldn't be able to expose it so easily. Lu Yin didn't believe him, but he couldn't find any loopholes. Show me the reverse origin formation. The Imperial Tutor carved the reverse origin formation into a jade stone and handed it to Lu Yin. Lu Yin would definitely study it when he returned. With the Imperial Tutor's abilities, he had only been able to set it up twice over the years, which showed how difficult it was. Right, Heavenly Master Gu Yan had been in seclusion all these years. Could it be that he had been studying the human-shaped source boxes? With his abilities, if human-shaped source boxes could be unlocked normally, then he wouldn't have needed to study them. Furthermore, heavenly inscriptionists and supreme sage heavenly masters all had human-shaped source boxes, but he had never heard of them being unlocked. This was similar to what the Imperial Tutor had said. Human-shaped source boxes couldn't be unlocked normally. There was one way to verify the Imperial Tutor's words. Little Shi's book. Lu Yin could use that book to investigate the origin stone technique and the reverse origin formation and see if he could find anything. The Imperial Tutor didn't know about this, but Lu Yin could verify it. The two of them walked through this space, and Lu Yin deliberately approached the Yin Guai until he was 5 meters away from it. He then fused with the Yin Guai and read its memories. The Yin Guai's memories hadn't changed much over the past few years, and even when he had moved the humanoid source box, nothing had changed. Lu Yin was disappointed, as Skymander Imperial Tutor had been too straightforward in bringing him here. He was actually thinking that this space had been rearranged or that something had happened in the past that he could use the Yin Guai's memories to find out. Unfortunately, there was nothing. Everything was normal. On the surface, it looked like Imperial Advisor Bu Tian had completely submitted. Not only had he led the Celestial Beast Empire's countless beasts to bow and submit, but he had also given Lu Yin the Book of Destiny. He had also brought Lu Yin to this space and told Lu Yin everything about the human-shaped source box. Logically, abnormal. What is that statue in front of us? Lu Yin was puzzled. The Imperial Tutor's expression was solemn as he knelt before Lu Yin, his eyes filled with reverence and fanaticism. Lu Yin had seen this scene many times in the Yin Guai's memories, and it was exactly the same. Junior disciple Bu Tian pays his respects to the Dao Master. Bu Tian Imperial Tutor respectfully called out. Lu Yin raised a brow. Dao Lord? Only the masters of the 6 continents had the qualifications to be called Dao Lords. Who is this creature? Dao Lord, this is the 4th mainland's Dao Lord, the Desolate God, the Imperial Tutor solemnly introduced. Lu Yin's expression froze and he slowly looked up. The Desolate God was the 4th mainland's Dao Lord, and it was on par with the Dao Lords of the other 5 continents. It was a powerhouse that was second only to the primogenitors of that era, and it was on the same level as the Death God. Lu Yin had previously guessed the statue's identity, but now that he had heard it firsthand, the shock caused his mind to rumble. At this moment he finally saw the Desolate God's true appearance. The Desolate God was not a human, but an astral beast that had once ruled over the 4th mainland. Lu Yin did not know what race this beast belonged to, but when he first saw it he felt that it was very ordinary. It did not have any awe-inspiring aura, and compared to the words, Desolate God, it seemed too ordinary. Lu Yin took a deep breath and bowed. Junior Lu Yin pays his respects to the Desolate God. Seeing Lu Yin pay his respects, the Imperial Tutor had a complicated expression. During the Above Heaven era, even though the Desolate God had protected the 4th mainland, it had not been able to prevent the humans from enslaving, plundering, and even cultivating the countless creatures of the 4th mainland. This was something that the Desolate God could not change. As a descendant of the Lu family, Lu Yin was already showing enough respect by paying his respects to the Desolate God. Thank you, Dao Lord, the Imperial Tutor said gratefully. Lu Yin earnestly said, as the ruler of the 4th mainland, it is only right for me to be respected by the descendants. Besides, I believe that the Desolate God fought to the death with the Eternals for that era. Its death is a loss to everyone. The Imperial Tutor nodded. The Desolate God and the 4th mainland perished together. What we're stepping on might be its blood. Aside from the desolate god, the fourth mainland should have produced more than one progenitor, right? The imperial tutor replied, of course. The closest one to the present is progenitor Wuxiang. Unfortunately, he was also sacrificed on the battlefield against the sixth mainland. Is that so? Lu Yin had heard of progenitor Wuxiang far too many times. If not for progenitor Wuxiang's hide, the imperial tutor would not have been able to survive until now. Both the hide and the third Night King had protected him during his time of weakness. After leaving the space, the imperial tutor asked, Dao Lord, do you have any plans for this place? Lu Yin replied, let's leave it at that for now. The imperial tutor nodded and followed Lu Yin back to the celestial beast empire. Imperial tutor, aren't you afraid that I'll give the Book of Destiny to the Fate Daughter? On the way back, Lu Yin suddenly asked. The imperial tutor calmly replied, this book already belongs to you, Dao Lord. If you wish, you can give it to anyone. Lu Yin looked at the boundless sky and kept thinking about what had just happened. The imperial tutor had submitted too easily and he had been too submissive. The imperial tutor was willing to give Lu Yin anything, which made Lu Yin feel uneasy. But what exactly was that uneasy? He could not figure it out. Should he kill him? This question suddenly appeared in Lu Yin's mind, and he unconsciously revealed a trace of killing intent. The imperial tutor's sharp senses detected this killing intent, and his expression changed. But even if you give the Book of Destiny to the Fate Daughter, she should not be able to use it. Why is that? Lu Yin retracted his killing intent and asked in confusion. The imperial tutor explained, although the Book of Destiny is a power vessel created by destiny, it is different from ordinary treasures and requires time to nurture. What do you mean? When I first obtained the Book of Destiny, I could not see the words, but as time passed and I cultivated the power of destiny, I gradually began to see the words. This process takes 10,000 years. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. 10,000 years? Xianxia could not have lived for 10,000 years, so how could he see the words? Xianxia had not lived for 10,000 years, so how could she use the Book of Destiny? Either the imperial tutor was lying or there was another way. He remembered that Xianxia had said that he could see the words when he obtained the book from the Hall of Honor, but no one else could. He had never nurtured the Book of Destiny before. If what the imperial tutor said was true, then what was the difference between him and Xianxia? Why could he see the words directly? What about Xianxia? The Fate Daughter is a direct descendant of destiny. You can show it to the Fate Daughter, Dao Lord. Lu Yin thought about it. If someone can see the words directly, what does that mean? The imperial tutor suddenly looked up and stared at Lu Yin, not avoiding the question. Destiny. Lu Yin's eyes widened. What did you say? Imperial tutor Bu Tian said in a low voice. If someone is able to see the words of the Book of Destiny without going through any nurturing, there can only be one reason. They are destiny. Lu Yin lowered his head and looked at the Book of Destiny. Destiny? Xianxia? Xianxia? Destiny? How was that possible? But why was that not possible? If Big Sis could be the Netherworld ancestor, then it was not impossible for destiny to appear as well. However, there was only one destiny and Xianxia and Xianxia were two different people. He returned to the Celestial Beast Empire in deep thought. Lu Yin had only one goal in mind when he returned, and that was to gather resources. He had suppressed the matter of destiny, but he would only know the truth after he showed the Book of Destiny to the Fate Daughter. He didn't know if the imperial tutor was right. If Xianxia was destiny, then so be it, but if Xianxia was destiny, then Lu Yin found it hard to accept. Destiny was a peak existence that was on par with the death god. Big Sis had obtained the Yo secret and her cultivation had skyrocketed. Right, if Xianxia really was destiny, then wouldn't her cultivation have skyrocketed after she obtained the Book of Destiny? Would that explain her unfathomable cultivation? Lu Yin shook his head. The more he thought about it, the easier it was. He sighed and changed the topic. You should know me well. Since the astral beast domain is willing to join the above heaven sect, then what about the resources? As he spoke, the imperial tutor, the Yao Emperor, and a group of astral beasts appeared below him. Lu Yin didn't need to hide anything as there was nothing on the fifth mainland that was worth hiding. The Yao Emperor and the other astral beasts weren't surprised. Are you referring to star essence? Lu Yin answered, correct. The Yao Emperor replied, the total star essence in the celestial beast domain is more than 50 billion cubes. Lu Yin's expression turned ugly. That was only that much. Within the imperial palace, there's a collection of resources over countless years, and there are more than 600 billion star essence, the Yao Emperor continued. Lu Yin's expression softened a little. This was the entire Celestial Beast Empire's resources, so having this much was already quite good. The 26 alliances have a good understanding of you, Dao Child, and they've already contacted me to transport star essence over. They're on the way, and there's close to 1 trillion star essence in total. If you need it, I can have all the astral beasts in the astral beast domain hand over star essence. Lu Yin raised a brow. What did the Yao Emperor mean by having a good understanding of him? This sounded uncomfortable, but he still asked expectantly, how much do you have? The Yao Emperor thought about it. It shouldn't be less than 5 trillion. Chapter 23-21. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. 5 trillion star essence was more than the total amount of star essence on Junior Progenitor Planet, and it was enough to crush the entire 4 cardinal scales. He believed that none of the 4 cardinal scales would have so many star essence. Although this seemed like a lot, it was actually not that much when compared to the entire star domain. Some astral beasts also relied on star essence for their cultivation. Otherwise, Yao Gu would not have been able to obtain a crystal card from the Mavis Bank. If the astral beast domain did not use star essence to cultivate like the technocracy, then this amount of resources would definitely be much greater. After all, the resources that the Yao Emperor could gather were only the resources that the astral beasts were willing to hand over. Lu Yin believed that if all of the star essence in the astral beast domain were gathered together, then there would be no less than 20 trillion star essence, which was about 20 times that of the technocracy. As for the 5th mainland, the human domain was the one with the most star essence, and it was impossible for Lu Yin to estimate how many star essence the entire human domain had. If he were to include the 6th mainland and the astral tree domain, then he would be able to get his hands on all the star essence and upgrade the slipper to the point where it would be able to kill the Eternal's only true god. But then again, who did the slippers belong to? Following this, Lu Yin had the Yao Emperor announce to the entire astral beast domain that the astral beast army would be formed as soon as possible and then set up camp in the human domain's heavens sect. At the same time, he would leave with the Yao Emperor and Imperial Tutor Skyminder while leaving the astral beast domain to the Sky Blade sect. The Sky Blade sect only had Leng Qing and no other cultivators, so Lu Yin had the giant army follow them to the astral beast domain. The astral beast domain's violent winds could only be suppressed by the giants. In Heaven's sect, Ku Wei received some bad news. Go to the astral beast domain? Leng Qing looked down at him. Get ready. It's the Daoist's order and we'll leave immediately. He was not obeying Lu Yin or his status as the Daoist, but rather the progenitor's sword. Only Lu Yin had the sword, and in his eyes, Lu Yin was no different from the progenitor. Of the 8 Heavenly Gates leaders, he was the most loyal to Lu Yin besides Lu Bujing. Ku Wei was sorrowful. Can I not go? Leng Qing was indifferent. Discuss this with the Daoist. Ku Wei's hands trembled as he contacted Lu Yin. Not long after that, he gave up and reorganized the giant army as he prepared to head to the astral beast domain. To him, going to the astral beast domain was torture. Being in the above heavens sect was much better, and he could act like a tyrant in the human domain with the title of Lu Yin's disciple. The beauties, the resources, and the power he wielded were all too wonderful. When he had nothing to do, he could even go to the Ku family and show off his might. However, reality was cruel. Lu Yin was suppressing the astral beast domain, and the astral beast domain was organizing the astral beast army to head to the human domain. Meanwhile, in the astral tree domain, Xian Academy was in a bad situation. Lu Nong Xinyang Lu Ke and the other heirs of large families had been brought back to their families from the top realm. They did not even go to Xian Academy. There were only 7 people left in Xian Academy. 7 people. It was impossible to build an academy and no more students would come. The Xian district had been sealed off by the 4-way scales. Hey, the 4-way scales shouldn't have been so aggressive. Mr. Jing was furious. Why did Lu Xiaoxian come to our academy? Half-ancestor Sudong Lai, who was guarding the library, said, even without Lu Xiaoxian, our academy wouldn't have lasted much longer. Dean Wen looked into the distance. He still could not accept the fact that Yu Hao was Lu Xiaoxian. How had he disguised himself? How had a third origin tribulation cultivator managed to deceive half-ancestors like them? How had he caused trouble for the four-way scales? He had caused chaos in the top realm, and he had even fought his way out of the divine martial plane, causing the divine martial heavenly prison flood dragon to disappear. Even Xianxia, who had used his ancestral world, had been able to escape. Everything had happened. Even if the three half-ancestors worked together, they would not have been able to do it. Zhou Xian is truly a genius. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to call him the #1 genius since ancient times, Dinwen sighed. Mr. Tang sighed in admiration. That's right. Since ancient times, who could fight against 4 half-ancestors with only 3 origin tribulations? He even managed to kill one and escape from a progenitor? This has never happened before. Even during the Lu family's golden age, no one was able to do it. Mr. Wei replied, if it was the Zhou Xian of that era, he wouldn't have been able to do it either. The trajectory of history is always inexplicably fixed. Everything that the Lu family did in the past, Zhou Xian is accelerating. Mr. Huai quietly listened to their conversation. Did this have anything to do with him? No, he was just a very ordinary enlighter cultivator. No one listened to him in class and he had no presence among the students. A mentor like him should have left already, as the four-way scales had given him pretty good conditions that he would never be able to obtain in his entire life. However, he did not want to leave. It was not that he was stubborn, but rather that he had been a step too late. Just as he was about to agree to leave Xian Academy, something had happened to his body. His cultivation technique had caused his meridians to become chaotic, and by the time he had recovered, a few days had passed. When he reappeared, the four-way scales could no longer be contacted, and all he saw were the 6 people in front of him. These 6 people were also rather surprised that he had appeared. Zhou Xian was not stupid, and he naturally said that he had willingly stayed behind to show off in front of the 3 half-ancestors. However, in reality it was useless. He had heard Zhou Xiaoxuan's name too many times over the past few days, and he was truly a ruthless person. He had never expected that the smiling and likable Mr. Haoyu was actually Zhou Xian, the four-way scale's greatest enemy. He had even caused a huge ruckus in the top realm and fought his way out of Shenwu Plain. This was simply unimaginable. Zhou Xian did not even dare to dream of such a thing. The four-way scales has given us a deadline. If we don't hand over the mountains and seas, then we'll wipe out the academy. It seems like these old bones of mine will have to take a gamble. The culinary god stood up and rubbed his shoulders. Sidonglai looked at him. Are you preparing to break through? The culinary god nodded. If I hadn't blocked that attack for Zhou Xian in Shenwu Plain, then the academy wouldn't have been in such a miserable state, and the four-way scales wouldn't have been so aggressive. The academy has only been able to remain stable for so many years because of you. If you want the mountains and seas, then we'll just hand them over, Sidonglai said. The culinary god's gaze darkened. We can't stop them. Without students, the academy will no longer be the academy, and there's no point in holding on. Even if progenitor Wen's source box array can hold them off for a while, it won't last forever, Mr. Tang said. Actually, it's not like we don't have a chance, Mr. Wei suddenly said. Everyone looked at him. The culinary god was stunned. A chance. Mr. Wei smiled. We've always been thinking about how Zhou Xian would cause trouble in the top realm. He fought his way out of Shenwu Plain in the top realm, but have you ever wondered how he ended up in this part of the universe? They all looked at each other, deep in thought. The four-way balance clearly sent an expeditionary force to the abandoned land to hunt him down, but he still came. Moreover, his cultivation has increased greatly, and he even has the help of a half-martial ancestor. How did he manage to escape from ancestor Xianxia in the Battle of the Upper Realm? Impossible. There's only one explanation. A progenitor helped him, and that progenitor might have also come from the abandoned lands, Mr. Wei said. No one knew the details of how Lu Yin had fought against Xianxia in the battle at the top realm, as Xianxia had not allowed news of it to spread. Only progenitors knew about Wuxia's help and everyone else could only guess. What do you mean? Dinwen asked. Mr. Wei said, the new void corridor is about to be repaired and it won't take long. When the time comes, our region will be reconnected to the abandoned lands, and the four-way scales will still focus on Zhou Xian. If he dares to come to the top realm, then he'll have the confidence to fight against the four-way scales. That's the feeling he's been giving me lately. So you want to delay until the four-way scales have no time to pay attention to us? Sidonglai asked. Mr. Wei replied, it's just a matter of time. She looked at the food god. The longer we delay, the higher the chances of Senior breaking through, right? The food god felt bitter. Breaking through? If he didn't kill that traitor, how could he break through? Dinwen looked at the food god. You are the only hope of the academy. Once you break through, the four-way scales won't be able to do anything. Do your best. The food god took a deep breath. Then I'll go into seclusion. How long you can delay this will depend on yourselves. If you really can't, just call me out. Even if I fail to break through, I'll give them a scare. Everyone was speechless. Above Xian Academy was the top realm, which was within the Wang family's territory. Above that was the sovereign's realm. There was an area in the sovereign's realm where an enormous tree branch that stretched as far as the eye could see had been torn apart. Broken branches floated in the air, and although they were broken, they were still incredibly large enough to support a planet. This was the front line of the sovereign's realm, and it was also where the four-way scale's forefather faced the Eternals. Atop a broken branch, four figures sat around a mirror. They were Xianxia by Wang Yuan, Wang Fan, and the Dragon Ancestor. That mirror was the Fog Ancestor's mirror. The four figures touched the mirror at the same time and then disappeared, entering the mirror's space. Without saying a word, they looked at each other and attacked at the same time. Not long after, the mirror exploded and the four forefathers walked out. They looked toward the center, where a white fog was swirling around and sweeping across the boundless starry sky. A majestic aura erupted, and the fog shook the sovereign's realm and the battlefield below. Countless people looked up, feeling the power of a progenitor. The half-martial ancestors looked up. Was this an unfamiliar progenitor's aura? Where had this progenitor come from? Bai Wang Yuan and the others were at the center of the fog. As the fog dissipated, the Fog Ancestor's true body was revealed. The Dragon Ancestor looked on excitedly, and the moment the Fog Ancestor appeared, he bowed deeply. Senior Fog Ancestor, Junior Dragon 2 greets you. Bai Wang Yuan looked at the Fog Ancestor with a complicated expression. So many years had passed and his old friends had disappeared one by one. Only the forefathers had survived, and now there was one more old friend. Chapter 23-22. Wang Fan's eyes narrowed. Another person had appeared in 9 mountains and 8 seas. Were Xiaoshang, Huiwen, and the others still alive? Xiaoshangji's eyes were filled with killing intent. If not for this woman, he would have already killed Lu Xiaoxian. What would her attitude be now? If she still wanted to protect Lu Xiaoxian, then a huge battle would be unavoidable. He was already considering how to banish this woman, just like the Lu family. Each of them had their own thoughts and plans. However, none of them had expected that the Fog Ancestor would attack without saying anything after appearing. His target was Bai Wang Yuan. Bai Wang Yuan instinctively blocked the Mist Ancestor's attack and berated, "Shiwei, are you crazy? Why are you attacking me?" The other 3 ancestors were equally confused. Even if the Mist Ancestor wanted to attack, he should have attacked Xiaoshangji. Why would he attack Bai Wang Yuan? The Mist Ancestor stared at Bai Wang Yuan and suppressed his anger. What's going on with the astral origin liquid? Explain it to me. Bai Wang Yuan frowned. Are you attacking me because of the astral origin liquid? That has nothing to do with you. Even in our era, Lu Tianyi was in charge of who used the astral origin liquid. The Mist Ancestor barked. It has nothing to do with me. I only know that the astral origin liquid is related to the mother tree. If the mother tree becomes unstable after absorbing too much astral origin liquid, who will bear the responsibility? I've been with Lu Yin for some time now and I understand this region well. Not only did you selfishly banish the Lu family, but you even wanted to steal the astral origin liquid. Without the Lu family, you can rely on Huiwen's sourcebox array and the mother tree to stop the everlasting tribe. Once the mother tree becomes unstable, what will you use to stop the everlasting tribe? Do you really want to cause the extinction of humanity? Shiwei, you're exaggerating, Wang Fan said. The Mist Ancestor snorted and stared at Wang Fan. All 4 scales have a share of the astral origin liquid. If you don't give me an explanation, don't think that you'll have an easy time. We were the ones who let you out. I told you that you would repay kindness with enmity. We shouldn't have let you out. Xiaoshangji was unhappy. Bai Qi said, no matter what, it's always good to have another progenitor. Shui, if you want to consider the bigger picture, then don't go against us. That won't be good for humanity. Senior. The dragon ancestor called out. The fog ancestor turned around and glanced at the dragon ancestor. If I had known that helping you become an ancestral patriarch would cause the Lu clan to be exiled, I wouldn't have helped you, you greedy, ungrateful wretch. The dragon ancestor sighed. Senior, there are some things that I'm forced to do. In truth, he was of the same generation as the mist ancestor by Wang Yuan and the others. However, because of his limited talent, he had been unable to reach the patriarch realm. It was all thanks to the mist ancestor's inheritance of the mountains and seas, and the mountain and sea battle techniques that he had been able to break through that bottleneck. Otherwise, he would have long since turned to dust. That was why he treated Bai Wang Yuan and the others as equals. However, in front of the mist ancestor, he had to respectfully refer to him as senior. What's your purpose in letting me out? If it was the Lu family that let me out, I believe that they would consider the interests of the human race, but you... The fog ancestor looked down on these people. Wang Fan's expression was solemn. Shui, I don't care what you think of us in the past or in the present, but our standpoints are different now. Back then, the Lu family was supporting us and everyone had their own thoughts. But now we are the ones supporting them. As long as we don't want the human race to go extinct, we need to unite against the Eternals. The fog ancestor blinked. That's right. You're right. She paused for a moment before bursting into laughter. It was a mocking laugh. Xianxia's expression turned ugly. What are you laughing at? Is that so? The fog ancestor laughed so hard that she could barely breathe. Don't you think that you're being ridiculous? You worked so hard to exile the Lu family. Yes, you became the 4 cardinal scales and controlled this region of space, but what's the point of that? You can't even reach the sovereign realm, but a puny Lu'in with 3 origin tribulations can reach the divine martial plane. If the Lu family was still around, then even I would have a hard time reaching the divine martial plane, let alone a kid with 3 origin tribulations. These words made Xianxia, Wang Fan and the others' expressions turn ugly. Although these words were harsh, they were the truth. If the Lu family had been exiled, then they would have to replace them. To the entire human race, the 4 cardinal scales had replaced the Lu family. However, this didn't benefit them and they couldn't even leave the sovereign realm. The sovereign realm was like a cage for them. If this was in the past, then why would you let me out? It's already good enough that you didn't hide the mirror to death. Now you're actually forcing me to come out? How laughable. The fog ancestor laughed. Enough, Shui. We didn't let you out to laugh. In any case, you'll have to stay in the sovereign realm and deal with the Eternals in the future, Bai Wang Yuan said coldly. Senior, what's done is done. We can only look forward. In any case, it's my honor to be able to fight alongside Senior, the dragon ancestor said. The fog ancestor sighed. Alright, no matter what, you're the ones who let me out. I owe you a favor and I'll stay in the sovereign realm. However, you must give me an explanation about the astral liquid. I won't take any more astral liquid, Wang Fan said. The fog ancestor looked at him, then at Xianxia, then at Bai Wang Yuan and finally at the dragon ancestor. I hope so. At this moment, Wang Fan received a report from the Wang family. The new sky corridor will be repaired in at most a month. We need to find someone to oversee it. Otherwise, the corridor will be destroyed and we won't be able to connect. I'll go. Xianxia's expression was gloomy. Bai Wang Yuan's gaze was cold. Zhou Xian was able to come here from the abandoned lands. The situation in the abandoned lands might not be good for the expeditionary army. You need to be careful. Xianxia said, I have a clone that entered the abandoned lands but I lost contact with it. Don't worry, as long as the new sky corridor is reconnected, I'll definitely be able to contact it. Then I'll immediately know the situation in the abandoned lands. You still want to deal with Lu'in? The fog ancestor asked. Xianxia stared at her. You still want to help him? You've already repaid your debt to the Lu family. What we do now has nothing to do with you. Just stay in the sovereign's realm. Shui, we didn't ask you about the abandoned lands because we didn't want to make things difficult for you. We hope that you won't stop us from dealing with the remnants of the Lu family. The Lu family is irresponsible to the entire human race. I'll tell you clearly that when that brat was exposed at Dragon Mountain, it was the 7 sky gods that helped him escape. This time, it was the 7 sky gods that helped us stay in the sovereign's realm. Otherwise, that brat wouldn't have been able to escape. That brat is either Redback or a pawn that the Eternals are using to destroy the human race. The Fog ancestor had a complicated expression. He's not Redback. I'm sure of it. Then he's a pawn of the Eternals. With him around, the remaining members of the Lu family and the families that support them will cause chaos in the universe, Wang Fan said. The Fog ancestor sighed. She wanted to say something, but in the end she didn't say anything. Was it really that easy to kill Lu Yin? That brat could borrow Xiaoshang's strength from the Fifth Mainland, and even if they entered the Fifth Mainland, they might not be able to do anything to him. Moreover, that brat had countless strange items and she didn't even know how many he had. He even had methods that could use resources to upgrade these items. It was simply unimaginable. She didn't say any of this. Bai Wang Yuan and the others didn't ask because they were certain that she wouldn't say anything. That was indeed the case. Since she wouldn't say anything, they would just let these people run into a wall. From what she understood, since that brat dared to cause trouble in the Cosmic Tree realm, he had already made preparations to fall out with them. The entire Fifth Mainland was his backing, and with the help of others in the Cosmic Tree realm, the Four Scales might not be able to do anything to him. I have something to say. The Fog ancestor looked up at the four. Humans are not allowed to fight amongst themselves. I'll fight whoever starts it. With that she left. Her last sentence caused Bai Wang Yuan and the others' expressions to darken. It wasn't because of the Fog ancestor's attitude, but because she had actually said, fight. Her meaning was clear. Zhou Xian had the strength to fight against the Four Scales. This was equivalent to confirming the failure of the Expeditionary Army and Lu Xiaoshuan's status in the abandoned lands. Brother Xia, the moment the new void corridor is repaired, immediately head to the abandoned lands and kill Lu Xiaoxian. If anything happens, act immediately. I don't want to give him any time to react, Bai Wang Yuan said. Xia Shenji replied, I know, but he might not have a chance. My clone brought the Hellworm into the abandoned lands. Do you think he has the ability to escape? He was very confident. Although that clone was weak in the progenitor realm, it had the power of time. If it really wanted to kill someone, even a progenitor might not be able to save that person as long as that person couldn't break through the power of time. The power of time wasn't something that could be found anywhere. Not everyone had it. No matter what, we have to go in immediately. Even if Lu Xiaoxian dies, we have to find his corpse, Wang Fan said with a cold expression. On the Fifth Mainland, Lu Yin also received news from the technocracy that the new void corridor was about to be repaired in about a month. He walked out of the Celestial Emperor Palace and looked at the Hellworm, who was baring his fangs and brandishing his claws to scare the beasts around him. Sovereign, sovereign, Lu Yin called out. The two stepped forward. Daozi. The Astral Beast army must be formed within half a month, and we can head straight for the Above the Sky sect. We can't be late for even a day. Bring a large number of Void Wanderers there and equip the army, Lu Yin said. We understand. The sovereign left and personally urged the Astral Beast army to be formed. Lu Yin also contacted Lu Bujing and the others and ordered the Above Sky sect to prepare for war. All of the armies were to be organized and cultivators were not allowed to go into seclusion. They were to be on standby at any time, including the cultivators from the Sixth Mainland. He wanted to gather all of the Fifth Mainland's power and face the Four Scales. In the Innerverse, when Zizai received news that the Above Sky sect was preparing for war and immediately contacted Shan Shen, Lu Qinjue, Spirit Taizu and the others. The Above Sky sect is preparing for war? Who is their target? Hasn't the Astral Beast domain already been conquered by the Daozi? We don't know who the target is, but the order to prepare for war came from the Daozi. All of the sects and organizations must go all out to participate. From the looks of it, it won't be any worse than when we faced the Sixth Mainland's invasion. There's going to be another war. It shouldn't be the Eternals or else the Above Sky sect would have spread the news. Prepare for war. Chapter 23-23. The leaders of the Seven Courts, the Hall of Honor and the Cosmic Sea were all discussing this, but no one knew who their target was. However, Lu Yin had given the highest order to prepare for this war, and he had also asked Shui Chuanshao and the others to draw up the most detailed battle contributions. The entire Fifth Mainland was mobilized and the Sixth Mainland was no exception. Even the Blood Ancestor came out of seclusion. Lu Yin contacted the blood ancestor and asked him to mobilize the entire sixth mainland. It was rare for continents to work together in human history, but now, under Lu Yin's orders, all of the sixth and fifth mainland's cultivators were gathered together to face the four scales. Lu Yin would have to wait and see how strong this force would be, but he was confident that it would give the four scales a surprise. While preparing for the war, the blood ancestor raised his suspicions. He wanted to know who their target was. Lu Yin didn't hide anything and told him about the situation in the cosmic tree domain. This was an unresolvable conflict, and even if he gave up on avenging the Lu family, the four scales wouldn't let him off. In the end, the blood ancestor sighed and hoped that the humans wouldn't suffer too many losses in this war. Lu Yin didn't know if a war would break out. Perhaps it would and perhaps it wouldn't. He also didn't know how the four scales would react to him, so he decided to let nature take its course. If it really didn't work out, he still had one last move. Of course, he wouldn't use it if he could. Imperial Tutor, does your Book of Destiny represent the present? Lu Yin asked. Yes, the Imperial Tutor respectfully replied. Then help me take a look and see if there's anything in the fifth mainland that can threaten me. The Imperial Tutor was helpless. Daoist, the Book of Destiny is a power vessel, but it's only a support. It can't cover the entire fifth mainland. What can your Book of Destiny divine about me? Lu Yin asked. Can't be divined. It can't be divined. Lu Yin stared at the Imperial Tutor. Yes, it can't be divined or else. He didn't finish his sentence, but Lu Yin knew what he wanted to say. If it really could be divined, then the astral beast domain wouldn't have allowed him to rise. From the moment a human cultivator stepped on the path of cultivation, any achievement would be noticed by these great figures. Bu Tian Imperial Tutor must have divined many people, and Yi Futian's cultivation path could be considered legendary. If he had divined to this day, the Demon Emperor would have risked his life to kill his way into the human domain just to prevent Yi Futian from rising. What about undying Yushan? Lu Yin asked. Imperial Preceptor Skymander said, I can't divine the Daoist, but I can divine the people around him. Through certain things I can analyze what the Daoist wants to do and what he wants to achieve. Then I can directly divine undying Yushan. However, I really can't divine the Daoist. Otherwise, my celestial beast empire wouldn't have fallen to such a state. Ghost Monkey, do you still remember? Lu Yin suddenly changed the topic. Imperial Advisor Bu Tian's gaze turned cold. I do. Why do you want it? Lu Yin asked. Back during the Supreme Astral Tournament, Imperial Tutor Skymander had given the order to think of a way to snatch Ghost Monkey away from Lu Yin. When Lu Yin had accepted the offer to join the battle against the Astral Beast Domain, Feng Lin had also asked for Ghost Monkey. The Astral Beast Domain cared too much about Ghost Monkey. Imperial Advisor Bu Tian sighed. I don't know how much the Daoist knows about Ghost Monkey. It was born from progenitor Wuxiang's blood. Lu Yin's expression did not change. He had learned about this during the Mountain and Sea Realms Star Tower competition. At that time, Ghost Monkey had directly swallowed the blood of a progenitor and jumped from the Explorer realm to the Hunter realm. Because of this, Ghost Monkey had confessed. Otherwise, Lu Yin would have killed it. Seeing Lu Yin's calm expression, Imperial Advisor Bu Tian understood. Ghost Monkey has progenitor Wuxiang's blood, and it's very valuable to the Astral Beast Domain. More importantly, it might know where progenitor Wuxiang's tomb is. Progenitor Wuxiang's tomb? Lu Yin was surprised. Imperial Advisor Bu Tian was astonished. You know about it? Lu Yin pondered this. Ghost Monkey had mentioned progenitor Wuxiang's tomb more than once. It had wanted to use progenitor Wuxiang's tomb to attract Lu Yin, but progenitor Wuxiang's tomb had been too far away back then. Lu Yin had never even considered conquering the Astral Beast Domain. It was impossible for a human to go to the Astral Beast Domain to search for progenitor Wuxiang's tomb. Even when Lu Yin had become an emissary, he had not thought of coming to the Astral Beast Domain to search for progenitor Wuxiang's tomb. But things were different now. Does Ghost Monkey really know where progenitor Wuxiang's tomb is? We don't know, but it's the only place that we might know. It's not a tomb but rather a burial ground. Rumor has it that progenitor Wuxiang was heavily injured in a battle with the Sixth Mainland, and he found a place to bury himself. It's not a grand tomb, but if we can find that place, we'll be able to find progenitor Wuxiang's corpse and perhaps even obtain progenitor Wuxiang's blood. To our astral beast domain, progenitor Wuxiang's blood is a supreme treasure, Imperial Advisor Bu Tian said. Luyin laughed. Progenitor Wuxiang's blood was as tempting to the astral beast domain as progenitor Chen's blood was to humans. He had never thought that the damned monkey would have such a secret. Did it really know where progenitor Wuxiang's tomb was, or had it been lying all along? Half a month later, Leng Qing arrived with an army of giants. When the army arrived, Ku Wei's anguished wails could be heard. Master, you have to help me. I didn't want to come to this broken place. I only want to stay by your side for the rest of my life, serve you and revere you. I really don't want to stay here. The Yao Emperor and Imperial Advisor Bu Tian looked at Ku Wei strangely. It was said that humans were full of emotions, but there really were people who were this shameless. No one could see Ku Wei's wails, not even the Yao Emperor or Imperial Advisor Bu Tian. Even if a progenitor was present, it had nothing to do with Ku Wei. He was an existence that could scold even a fish, and he was invincible when it came to flattery. Lu Yin kicked Ku Wei aside. Without you, the army of giants won't be stable. You can stay here. Ku Wei crawled over and hugged Lu Yin's leg tightly. Master, please take me away. I just want to help you overcome all obstacles. If I can't see you, I'll have nightmares. Lu Yin sneered. That's fine. Ku Wei was delighted and he looked up at Lu Yin excitedly. Really? Lu Yin bent down. The astral sect is preparing for war. Do you understand? Ku Wei nodded blankly. Yes. Do you know who the enemy is? Ku Wei shook his head. Lu Yin said, the astral tree. Ku Wei clenched his fists. Don't worry, Master. Once the war starts, I'll definitely lead the army of giants to the front and tear apart those treacherous people who betrayed your family. They had gradually learned about the astral tree as well as how the four-way scales had betrayed the Lu family. They also knew about Lu Yin's origins. Lu Yin said, good. That's the attitude I want. Ku Wei was excited, but just as he was about to say something more, Lu Yin's next words caused his hair to stand on end. Once the war starts, the four-way scales will definitely send out 1 or 2 progenitors. You can lead the army of giants to block them, and with your size, you should be able to withstand 1 or 2 attacks. At that time, I'll have the space to show my abilities. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. That's right. Why didn't I think of this before? Ku Wei paled. Withstand 1 or 2 attacks. That was a progenitor, not an emissary who could destroy space with a wave of their hand. Even if he filled the universe with giants, it would be useless, let alone an army of giants. Master, I understand. Don't worry, I'll definitely help you protect the astral beast domain and not let these beasts act recklessly. The Yao Emperor's dangerous gaze swept over Ku Wei. This brat was asking for a beating. Lu Yin snorted and kicked Ku Wei away again. He then led Skyminder and the Yao Emperor up onto the back of the Hellworm. At this moment, the entire astral beast army was gathered on the back of the Hellworm. There were 20 envoys, 300 enlighters and 5,000 explorers to hunters. There were also no less than 1 million ordinary astral beasts. These astral beasts had all taken human form and were trembling on the back of the Hellworm. The commander of the astral beast army was Su Qing, Lu Yin's old rival. Lu Yin climbed onto the Hellworm's back and gestured. The Hellworm opened its mouth and roared at the sky, unleashing its progenitor's power without restraint. Countless astral beasts trembled in fear before disappearing. This departure took away almost all of the astral beast domain's powerhouses, including the 26 alliances. During this half a month, besides the Yao Emperor personally supervising the astral beasts to join the astral beast army, the Yao Emperor would also ask the Hellworm to step in whenever they encountered any difficulties. The Hellworm's roar was enough to scare the astral beasts into wetting themselves. This allowed the astral beast army to be completed in just half a month. Of course, this was only the completion of the army, and it had not undergone any training. However, this was Su Qing's problem. Aside from the astral beast army, Lu Yin also took away at least half of the Void Wanderers, which amounted to about 10 million. These Void Wanderers were enough to serve as life-saving treasures for the lower-level cultivators, especially if the battlefield was held in the astral tree domain. News came from the technocracy once again. It was estimated that the astral corridor would be repaired in about 13 days. The closer it was to the deadline, the more accurate the numbers were. Lu Yin watched as the days passed, and he continued to urge the Above-the-Sky sect to reorganize the army. All of the cultivators from the 5th and 6th mainlands continuously surged towards the Above-the-Sky sect. Everyone knew that a great battle was imminent, but the majority still did not know who their enemy was. Lu Yin returned to the Above-the-Sky sect. The Hellworm was still outside the solar system, and he had been keeping an eye on the ancestral turtle ever since he returned. As for the Astral Beast army, it was arranged to be stationed in the Above-the-Sky sect. The astral beasts looked at the majestic Above-the-Sky sect and sensed the auras of half-progenitors and even progenitors. Despair filled their faces. Even without the Hellworm, they would not be able to resist such a powerful human. Su Qing was most worried that Lu Yin would use the Astral Beast army as cannon fodder on the battlefield. If the entire Astral Beast army died, it would be a huge blow to the Astral Beast domain. It would be better to fight the human domain and at least preserve the Astral Beast domain's reputation. On the second day in the Above-the-Sky sect, a person appeared in front of Su Qing. It was the second Night King. "Dozi, please have some tea." Su Qing was nervous as he followed the second Night King to Lu Yin's place for tea. He had been waiting for this moment as he knew that Lu Yin would definitely come looking for him. Now was the time. Chapter 23-24. As usual, Su Qing looked at the strange tea in front of him without any fear. Is this a punishment for the war in the Eastern Weaves? That's good as well, it'll put an end to that incident. He downed the entire cup of tea without hesitation. Zhao Ran blinked. You can't taste it like this. Su Qing frowned. Taste? Why would he want to taste when he was about to die? But why did Lu Yin have a cup in front of him as well? Everyone would misunderstand, and Lu Yin was beginning to enjoy seeing these people misunderstand. Everyone had a different mentality when facing death. Elder Green Apricot was afraid, Bai Ting was unwilling, and Su Qing was both unwilling and afraid. Of course, he was also pretending to be calm. In the entire Astral Beast domain, Su Qing was one of the creatures that Lu Yin admired the most. He was also the most suitable to lead the Astral Beast army, comparable to Shui Chuanshao. Lu Yin picked up the cup and took a sip. It's not bad, Zhao Ran. You've improved again. Zhao Ran liked hearing Lu Yin praise her tea as it was even better than being praised. She refilled Lu Yin's cup as well as Su Qing's. Drink slowly, it's very good. Su Qing was confused. It's not poison? Zhao Ran was displeased. It's tea and I made it myself. You're so rude. When he saw Lu Yin's sardonic expression, Su Qing knew that he had misunderstood. He coughed dryly. Sorry, I misunderstood. Lu Yin picked up the cup and took another sip. On the battlefield, there's only a difference between factions. There's no hatred. Commander Su Qing is doing his best to get rid of me and I'm doing my best to get rid of you. Or even. Su Qing looked at Lu Yin. Do you have any instructions for me today? Lu Yin put down his cup. Let's be clear. You're suitable to lead the Astral Beast army, but I'm not at ease. Su Qing nodded. I know, so what do you plan to do? Tell me what to do, Lu Yin retorted. Su Qing did not understand. Me? Lu Yin looked at him. It's very difficult for a human to command an Astral Beast army. They're of different races, so they won't have much of an effect unless the Hellworm is in charge. But do you think that thing looks like a commander? Su Qing could not help but look into the distance and see the gigantic prison flood dragon picking at its nose. It accidentally scratched its nose and became furious. It opened its mouth and roared, but then it guiltily looked in Su Qing's direction. He was speechless. But I can't make Dao Child feel at ease. How about this? Let's equate the Astral Beast army with the Yao Emperor and Imperial Tutor Skymender. That means... His expression grew solemn as he continued. If I find out that you're not fighting with your full strength, they'll all die. Su Qing's expression changed and his gaze became furious. Just as he was about to say something, Lu Yin suddenly smiled and said, I was just joking. Don't take it seriously. Su Qing's expression changed and he stared blankly at Lu Yin, not understanding what he meant. Since I'm handing it over to you, of course I trust you. I was just joking, don't be so serious. Su Qing frowned. Lu Yin's attitude had changed too quickly and he didn't know how to respond. Not long after, Su Qing drank another cup of flower tea and left. Lu Yin watched him leave. Sometimes one's state of mind had nothing to do with one's cultivation. Some half-martial ancestors were deathly afraid of death, but Su Qing was a commander who could face death head-on. Many ordinary people could do the same. Lu Yin had wanted to drink tea with Su Qing to probe his thoughts, but unfortunately it was useless. Reporting to the Daoist, I've brought it. The voice rang out. Lu Yin nodded and walked in a certain direction. As he passed by the second Night King, he asked, "Did the third Night King contact you?" The second Night King bowed deeply. Yes. Lu Yin didn't say anything else and quickly disappeared. The second Night King looked up and stared at the stone table with a complicated expression. He hadn't expected the third Night King to still be alive. When he saw the third Night King, he recalled the peak of the Day-Night clan. The three Night Kings had all tried to enter the Neoverse, but they had all been thrown into the Astral Beast domain by the Hall of Honor. The third Night King couldn't accept it and had wandered the universe. The second Night King, on the other hand, still wanted to stay in the Sky Sect. He knew that no matter where he went, the Sky Sect would be his home, and he wouldn't be able to escape Lu Yin's grasp. There were 6 people standing in the Sky Sect's training grounds, and they all looked at each other uneasily. They wanted to say something but didn't dare to. When Lu Yin arrived, the 6 hurriedly bowed. There were old and young people among the 6, and their cultivations weren't weak. One of the youths was even a member of the Universe Youth Council. Aside from not having the title of one of the 10 arbiters, his status was no different from the 10 arbiters of the past. "Greetings, Daoist." The 6 bowed. Lu Yin glanced at them. "I called you here for the fates," and the 6 remained calm, and one of the elders respectfully said, "The second Night King has already told us that if Daoist needs it, you can take it. We're willing to give up everything for you." Lu Yin smiled. "You don't need to give up everything. Just the fates and is enough. Don't worry, I'll give you something even better after I take your things." He then raised a hand and the 6 released their fates and the fates and would take different forms once it entered a person's body. Lu Yin didn't care what form they took and just took it away. The first fates and that he had absorbed had come from the 6th mainland's Hong Ying, and from then on he had learned that he could absorb other people's fates and originally he hadn't been too enthusiastic about the fates, and especially when Xianxia had mentioned that it could trigger fate, which had made his hair stand on end. However, the power in his heart required the fates and the more fates and there was, the greater the core of power in his heart would be. As the 6 grains of fates had entered his body, an invisible vibration exploded in the ears of all the above the Sky Sect's cultivators. In an instant, all 6 of them fainted, including quite a few cultivators who were within the above the Sky Sect's territory. The black and white fog formed the shape of Lu Yin's heart, and the fates and acted as the core. It was as if a continent was being supported by a star, and it formed an all-encompassing tyrannical power. On the continent formed by the fates and the time-withering tree had taken root and it flowed with a grayish color. Everything seemed harmonious. The 6 grains of fates and had caused the continent to grow slightly larger. Lu Yin had absorbed a total of 50 grains of fates and so there were only 58 left. He didn't know where to find these 58 grains of fates and these 6 people had come from the 5th and 6th mainlands, and Lu Yin had ordered them to search for them. Unfortunately, no matter how hard they searched, the 5th mainland probably wouldn't be able to find all of the grains of fates and right, he remembered Skyminder Imperial Tutor. Using the Book of Destiny to divine the fates and should be possible. "Take care of them and compensate them according to my instructions," Lu Yin said as he glanced at the 6 people who had fainted on the ground. Not too far away, the second Night King bowed respectfully. "Yes, Daozi." The sooner the new sky corridor was repaired, the closer it would be. Lu Yin wanted to resolve any unstable factors as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the Above the Sky sect continued to gather cultivators from all over. The back garden was constantly producing weapons, and the Void Wanderers were constantly being sent out to improve their coordination with the cultivators. All of this required time, and it definitely wouldn't be completed in a few days. It would take at least a few years. However, what Lu Yin needed was power and influence, a power that would cause the 4 heavens to feel apprehensive. He wanted to see how magnificent it would be to gather the entire 5th mainland's power. The 5th mainland hadn't even been fully assembled during the battle with the Eternals. A shadow approached from the ground and then appeared behind Lu Yin. "7th bro." Lu Yin paused. "I thought that you didn't want to appear." The shadow was the ghost monkey. Ever since Lu Yin had suppressed the astral beast domain, it had gone into hiding and no one had been able to find it. "Congratulations on unifying the 5th mainland, 7th bro," the ghost monkey said, but its tone was different from before. It was less jumpy and more steady. Lu Yin turned around and looked at the monkey. Speak. The monkey looked up and solemnly stared at Lu Yin. What else is there to say? Lu Yin frowned. So you went into hiding? Then why did you appear again? There has to be a conclusion, the ghost monkey said. Lu Yin looked at the monkey. Conclusion? What big words. Even Skyminder wouldn't dare to say such a thing. This damned monkey seemed to be hiding a lot. Did it think that Lu Yin knew something? If it thought so, then it meant that Lu Yin knew something. But where would he find out? The Yao Emperor? Skyminder Imperial Tutor? Lu Yin's face sank when he thought about this. They were still hiding something from him. How do you want to conclude this? Lu Yin asked. He didn't believe that this damned monkey could do anything on the fifth mainland, even if it was born from progenitor Wuxiang's blood. The monkey stared at Lu Yin and Lu Yin stared back. After a while, the monkey closed its eyes. Throughout the entire history of the universe, there aren't many people that I admire. Even the 9 mountains and 8 seas have nothing to do with me and I don't admire them. But seventh bro, you are an exception. You are the only human that I admire, so... It paused as if making some sort of decision. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed, but he didn't say anything. So I give you my blessings. Seventh bro, I give up, the monkey said solemnly. Its entire body relaxed, but there was also bitterness and sorrow in its expression. Lu Yin blinked. What blessings? The monkey was melancholy. Seventh bro, you've suppressed the astral beast domain, so the celestial ice phoenix clan is now yours. He gritted his teeth and said with great reluctance, congratulations seventh bro. Lu Yin's eyes widened. You're talking about the celestial ice phoenix clan? The monkey replied, of course they are yours. Although the celestial ice phoenix clan is a harem that progenitor Wuxiang bestowed upon me, if it's yours then I'll accept it. Congratulations seventh bro for obtaining a harem. You're hiding because of this. Lu Yin was stunned. Ghost monkey blinked. Why else would it be? Lu Yin's face twitched. What the hell? This guy was actually hiding because of this. How could he possibly do anything to the celestial ice phoenix clan? They weren't even from the same clan. Furthermore, the monkey had acted as if it was about to fight a decisive battle, which had made Lu Yin think that the damned monkey was hiding something and that he might be able to use progenitor Wuxiang's power. The more Lu Yin thought about it, the more annoyed he became. His expression had been wasted. He kicked out and sent the monkey flying with practiced movements. Chapter 23-25. The monkey flew away confused. It had clearly given up, and it had even given Lu Yin a blessing through sheer willpower. Why had seventh bro still hit it? Lu Yin was furious. Damn monkey. Wait, I forgot to ask you about progenitor Wuxiang's tomb. He waved his hand, causing the monkey to fly back and crash onto the ground, wailing in pain. Seventh bro, why did you hit me? The monkey rubbed its head and looked at Lu Yin with an aggrieved expression. It had thought that it had acted like a man today and had generously let go of its relationship with the celestial ice phoenix clan, but instead of being praised, it had been beaten up? Could not understand. Lu Yin was still angry and he wanted to kick the monkey again when he saw it like this. However, he did not, as he was afraid that he would accidentally kill the monkey. The celestial ice phoenix clan is yours. No one will fight with you over it, Lu Yin said unhappily. The monkey was stunned at first, but then it was overjoyed. Really? Seventh bro, you won't fight with me over it? Scram, I don't have time to fight with you over it. Lu Yin was annoyed. The monkey laughed. Thank you seventh bro. Seventh bro, you're too great. I'll repay your kindness in this lifetime. Seventh bro, you're too great. Seventh bro. Alright, enough with the nonsense. Let me ask you, where is progenitor Wuxiang's tomb? The monkey's eyes lit up. The bottom of the astral river. More accurately, it's at the border of the erudite flow zone. The bottom of the astral river? Lu Yin looked over. The monkey explained, back then progenitor Wuxiang buried himself at the bottom of the astral river at the border of the erudite flow zone. I also walked out from there and headed to the astral beast domain. I remember telling seventh bro that I was born from progenitor Wuxiang's shadow and was formed from his blood. That's why I can bring seventh bro to progenitor Wuxiang's corpse. But you've never been interested. Do you want to go now? I'll take you there. There's a large tomb at the bottom of the astral river? Lu Yin asked. The monkey replied, It's not a large tomb, just a burial ground. Why did progenitor Wuxiang bury himself at the bottom of the astral river? Lu Yin was curious. The monkey shook its head. I don't know. You transformed into ancestor Wuxiang before he died. Yes, I transformed a long time before I died. I personally saw progenitor Wuxiang fight a progenitor from the 6th mainland to the death. That progenitor was directly devoured by progenitor Wuxiang, and because progenitor Wuxiang's injuries were too severe, half of his body was gone. In the end, he could only bury his bones and die, the monkey said in a gloomy voice. The progenitor realm was not too far away from him. While progenitor Wuxiang was powerful, he would not surpass Xianxia and the others. As such, Lu Yin was not very interested in progenitor Wuxiang's corpse. Aside from the corpse, did progenitor Wuxiang leave behind any resources? The ghost monkey bitterly replied, no. Progenitor Wuxiang had a cosmic ring, but half of his body was destroyed. There was nothing left when he was buried. Lu Yin shook his head as he lost interest. Progenitor Wuxiang's corpse was of great value to the astral beast domain, but not to him. If he was good at studying the blood of powerhouses, he could still look for it. However, he was not good at making a fuss about dead people. 7th Bro. Although progenitor Wuxiang did not leave behind any resources, his body was huge, so his bones and blood should be useful. Even his fur should be useful. Do you want to look for them? The ghost monkey urged. It had been urging Lu Yin to look for progenitor Wuxiang's tomb, but Lu Yin had never gone. Now he was not interested, or rather he was not interested for the time being. The threat of the 4-way scales was about to arrive, so he had to deal with this matter first. What else do you want? Lu Yin glanced at the monkey and asked in disdain. This damned monkey was getting more and more irritated. It had even tried to push Lu Yin down in the past. The monkey did not sense Lu Yin's irritation, and it licked its lips as it smiled. There's one more thing. 7th Bro, do you think you can make the Celestial Ice Phoenix clan my harem in front of everyone in the Above the Sky sect? As soon as it finished speaking, it was sent flying by Lu Yin's kick. This damned monkey was pushing its luck. Just as the monkey was sent flying, Destiny's daughter came from that direction. She strangely glanced at the wailing monkey as it flew further and further away until it finally arrived in front of Lu Yin. Daoist. Lu Yin exhaled and suppressed his annoyance at the monkey's disturbance. Come with me. After changing locations, Lu Yin directly said, I still have to thank you for the astral beast domain. If you hadn't interfered with mending Tian, things might not have gone so smoothly. Destiny's daughter replied, it's what I should do. Lu Yin looked at her. How do you want me to thank you? Destiny's daughter's eyes flashed. Daoist, please do not interfere with my matters with mending Tian. You want to steal his book of destiny? Lu Yin countered. Destiny's daughter replied, the book of destiny belongs to destiny, and I'm the only inheritor of destiny. It should be mine. Lu Yin smiled. Mending Tian had willingly handed over the book of destiny to him, and even though he was certain that Lu Yin would not be able to read it, Lu Yin was satisfied with this attitude. On the other hand, Destiny's daughter was determined to obtain the book of destiny. If he could not borrow progenitor Chen's power, then these powerhouses from the Above the Sky sect would only treat him worse. I won't interfere with your matters, but mending Tian's book of destiny is with me, Lu Yin said. Destiny's daughter was astonished. It's with you. You can't calculate it? Lu Yin mocked. Destiny's daughter shook her head. I can't divine Daoist. He wields the progenitor's sword and transcends destiny. He's not someone we can divine, not even with the help of the book of destiny. According to the Fate Maiden's knowledge, the only reason she could not divine Lu Yin was because of the progenitor's sword. However, Skymender and Starsibyl knew that even without the progenitor's sword, they still could not divine Lu Yin. Daoist, the book of destiny? Destiny's daughter hesitated for a moment. Lu Yin looked at her and casually waved his hand, activating the Yu secret art. The book of destiny appeared in his hand. Destiny's daughter's eyes flashed with rare excitement. In her era, only Destiny could control the book of destiny. Even as Destiny's disciple, she could not touch it. Now, however, the book of destiny was so close to her that she could touch it. She wanted to take it away, but that would depend on this person's attitude. When had Destiny's inheritor ever been so sullen? Lu Yin looked at Destiny's daughter with interest. She clearly looked like a little girl, but she was more mature and steady than anyone else. At this moment he saw her anxious expression. The Book of Destiny floated and flew towards Destiny's daughter. Destiny's daughter excitedly received it and flipped it open. Her expression turned ugly as she saw that there were no words. She kept flipping through the book, but she could not see a single word. She frowned and unconsciously used Destiny's mysterious sky mirror. Words appeared on the book, but they were faintly discernible and almost impossible to read. Lu Yin kept looking at her, and he knew the answer from her expression. "What, you can't see any words?" Lu Yin asked. Destiny's daughter closed the book disappointedly. "I can't see anything for now. It needs time to nurture." Lu Yin's eyes flashed, and it was just as Mending Tian had said. "How long?" "I haven't tried, but at least 1,000 years, she replied. Lu Yin asked, "What does it mean if someone can directly see the words after flipping open the book?" Destiny's daughter's expression changed slightly. "People? What if there is?" Lu Yin asked. Destiny's daughter looked deeply at Lu Yin. "Whoever owns the Book of Destiny will naturally be able to see the words." Lu Yin looked away. This was the same answer. After a moment of silence, Lu Yin looked at her. "What, you don't plan on returning the book to me?" Destiny's daughter replied seriously, "This is the Book of Destiny and it belongs to you." "It belongs to me," Lu Yin said. Destiny's daughter's gaze trembled. Lu Yin stared at her. "I'm the one who gave you the chance to read it. If it weren't for me you wouldn't even know its whereabouts. But this is the Book of Destiny. Fates and is also an item of destiny and I have it in my body. Do you want to take it as well?" Lu Yin asked in a low voice. Destiny's daughter and Lu Yin looked at each other with unwillingness, but in the end she still passed the book to him. Lu Yin took it. "Dozi, Mending Tian is still a beast and he understands the situation of the Fourth Mainland during the Above Heaven era. He has a deep hatred for us humans, so you should be careful if you want to use him to divine some things for you." Lu Yin was puzzled. Why does Mending Tian have the mysterious sky mirror? Why does he have the Book of Destiny? Destiny's daughter was also puzzled. "I didn't have any impression of him when I was here. I'll investigate this matter." Lu Yin looked at the Book of Destiny. "It's so heavy and it's said that this book represents the present. Do you really want it?" Destiny's daughter replied seriously, "This is an item of destiny. Don't mention that to me. I'm asking you if you really want it." Lu Yin looked at Destiny's daughter and rudely interrupted her. Ever since she had stepped onto the path of cultivation, Destiny's daughter had never been interrupted so rudely before. She was not used to it, but she still replied, "Yes." "Then give me something in exchange." "What thing?" "Fateson," Lu Yin said. Destiny's daughter was astonished. "You want Fateson? That will deepen your involvement with Destiny." "It doesn't matter." Lu Yin looked at Destiny's daughter. "I've already told Mending Tian to search for Fateson. Whoever finds the most will get this book in the end." Destiny's daughter's gaze landed on the Book of Destiny, and then she looked at Lu Yin. "I understand." After Destiny's daughter left, Lu Yin left the Above Heaven and headed to the Neoverse. He did not trust either Mending Tian or Destiny's daughter, and only Xianxia could make him feel at ease. However, the two's words made him feel uneasy. Xianxia could directly see the words in the Book of Destiny, and he had not cultivated it or even cultivated the Xiantian mirror. How could he see them? The only explanation was that he was Destiny, but wasn't Destiny female? Lu Yin stepped onto the stars and quickly arrived in the Neoverse to find Xianxia. Xianxia was still in the library sitting in a corner and reading. However, he was not alone this time. There was a woman sitting next to him with a calm expression and a faint smile. Lu Yin was astonished. Where had this woman come from? Lu Yin's appearance did not attract Xiaoxi's attention as he was still immersed in his book. However, the woman had noticed him. When she saw Lu Yin, her expression froze and then she was overjoyed. Her eyes lit up as if she had seen someone she respected. Lu Yin looked at her, and the first thing he considered was her identity and purpose. Xiaoxi was just a narcissistic mushroom head in the eyes of most people, but in Lu Yin's eyes he was the controller of the Book of Destiny. Anyone who approached Xiaoxi was someone he cared about. Chapter 23-26. Just as Lu Yin was about to ask about her identity, she spoke up. "Brother Lu." Lu Yin was stunned and stared at her blankly. Did he know her? Brother Lu? No one had addressed him that way before. You are. Xianxia heard the girl's voice and looked up. He was pleasantly surprised. Brother Lu, you're here. Lu Yin looked at her. Her face was rosy and she was both happy and nervous. I am Yaya. Lu Yin was confused. Yaya? What a familiar name. Right, he suddenly remembered and was shocked. Starlight Island's Yaya? She was delighted. That's me. Brother Lu, you still remember me? Lu Yin took a few steps forward and sized her up. Are you really Yaya? That Yaya from Starlight Island? She nodded. Brother Lu, you know each other? Xianxia was surprised. Lu Yin was surprised as well. Yaya was the little girl from Starlight Island. When the Sixth Mainland had invaded, Lu Yin, Starsibyl and Ku Wei had gone to the Cosmic Sea to fight. When they had passed by Starlight Island, they had met a little girl who had pretended to be strong and had filled her house with adult clothes to protect herself. That little girl was Yaya and she was a very pitiful girl. At the time, Lu Yin had even thought of taking Yaya away after defeating the Sixth Mainland, as that little girl was too pitiful. However, he had forgotten about her after that incident and he had only remembered her today. Yaya looked at Lu Yin in pleasant surprise. Brother Lu, I knew I would meet you here. Lu Yin was astonished. I never thought that the little girl from back then would have grown up so much. Yeah, why are you here? Yaya slowly recounted her experiences. It was not complicated, but it could be considered an opportunity. After the Sixth Mainland had retreated, the Hall of Honor had sent many people to the Fifth Mainland to assist those who had been affected by the war as much as possible. Coincidentally, one of the cultivators had gone to Starlight Island and met Yaya. He had been shocked that the little girl had managed to survive, and he had also asked Yaya about Starsibyl and Lu Yin's appearance. After confirming her identity, he had brought her to the Hall of Honor. However, the Hall of Honor was too large and Yaya had been cultivating all this time. She had not had the chance to meet Lu Yin and the others. Fortunately, her innate gift was not bad and she could be considered an elite among her peers. The last time I saw Brother Lu outside the library, I guessed that Brother Lu would come again, so I stayed here to help Little Shir organize the books, Yaya said. Lu Yin nodded and praised. To be able to stand out from the Hall of Honor, you must have trained very hard. Yaya grew even more excited at his praise. Over the years that she had been training in the Hall of Honor, she had heard too many legends about Lu Yin. Lu Yin had long since transformed from that big brother of hers into a legend. He was someone who could command the entire Fifth Mainland and had even saved the entire continent. Lu Yin was very happy to be reunited with Yaya, as they had missed this little girl in the past. Big brother Lu, Yaya is very hardworking in her cultivation. There are very few people who can compare to her. If it wasn't for the lack of resources, there would have been a way long ago, Little Shir said. Xianxia, don't spout nonsense. Yaya glared at him and Xianxia laughed. Lu Yin replied, aside from hard work, resources are also very important when it comes to cultivation. Have you acknowledged a master? Yaya shook her head. I had masters back then, but they all died in battle, so no one was willing to accept me as a disciple. What do you mean? Lu Yin did not answer. Xianxia explained, Yaya had a total of 3 masters and all 3 of them died in battle. Some people say that Yaya is a jinx, so no one was willing to accept her as a disciple. It's also very difficult for her to obtain resources. Yaya lowered her head, her face flushed red and her gaze dim. Lu Yin was shocked. All 3 of your masters died. How did they die? Yaya pursed her lips. The first master went berserk during cultivation and self-detonated. The second master chased after an enemy but was killed instead. The third master died at the hands of a corpse king. Lu Yin sympathized with her. It's very normal for people to die in the universe. Even if 3 masters died, you shouldn't be called a jinx, right? Is someone targeting you? Lu Yin's eyes flashed with a cold light. If someone was targeting Yaya, then he would have to investigate thoroughly. Yaya's face paled and she bit her lip. Suddenly she bowed to Lu Yin. Brother Lu, I still have matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving first. We'll meet again in the future. Lu Yin was flabbergasted and looked at Xianxia. Xianxia sighed. No one is targeting her. It's mainly because she blames herself. The words jinx came from her own mouth and she even said that her parents had died because of her. Over time, no one was willing to accept her as a disciple. Even if everything had nothing to do with her, if she continues to blame herself like this, her cultivation achievements won't be great. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Was that the case? That was understandable. When they had first met Yaya, her parents had already died. She had lived on alone and did not want to trouble anyone. Even though she had developed a tenacious personality, there were still flaws in her personality that had been present since she was young, and it was very difficult to change. Are you close to Yaya? Luyin asked. Xianxia scratched his mushroom head. I've known her for half a year and she's always been here. I thought that she was admiring my mushroom hair, but I didn't expect that she was waiting for you. Right, Brother Lu, are you here to find me? He then noticed the Book of Destiny in Lu Yin's hand and was shocked. What's this? Lu Yin passed the book to Xianxia. Take a look. Xianxia took it and looked at it in amazement. It's exactly the same as mine. He then opened it and flipped through it page by page. Finally, he looked up in confusion. There's no word. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. You can't see the words? Xianxia nodded. Lu Yin looked at Xiaoxi's Book of Destiny and saw that it was exactly the same. You can see the words in that book but not this one? Xiaoxia nodded again, but after some thought he looked at Lu Yin suspiciously as if he were looking at a fake. Lu Yin took the Book of Destiny. Since you can't see it, then I won't look at it. Help me find a few words from your book. Xiaoxia turned around and picked up the Book of Destiny, asking expectantly, what words? Only Lu Yin could see the words in this book, but he could only see what he wanted to see or what he wanted to see. It was different from normal books. The reason why he spent every day reading in the library was to find inspiration from these normal books and search for that mysterious book. He was actually looking forward to someone asking him questions. In particular, Lu Yin had specifically pointed out that he should look for it in that book. Origin Stone Technique. Lu Yin said 3 words. Xiaoxia hurriedly flipped through the pages. Found it, the Origin Stone Technique. It's a very strange technique, and after cultivating it you'll be controlled by the person who created it. Its only use is to protect yourself, and no matter what kind of disaster you encounter, as long as you use the Origin Stone Technique, you'll be able to transform into a human-shaped rock. Only... Suddenly his eyes widened. Is this a human-shaped source box? Lu Yin stared at him. Is this the origin of the human-shaped source box? Xiaoxia nodded blankly. A human-shaped rock. Isn't that a human-shaped source box? It's from the Origin Stone Technique. That's what it says here. Lu Yin straightened up. It seemed that Skyminder had not been lying, and the source box had indeed transformed into a human-shaped source box by cultivating the Origin Stone Technique. What else is there? Nothing else. That's all that's written. Xiaoxia deliberately turned the page towards Lu Yin as if he wanted him to see it. Lu Yin was speechless as he stared at the blank page. Help me check the inverse origin formation again. Little Shur acknowledged Lu Yin's words and flipped through the book once more. He quickly explained, the inverse origin formation is a very difficult source box array that can rescue someone who cultivates the Origin Stone Technique. It corresponds to the Origin Stone Technique. Brother Lu, you should know about this, right? I do. I just wanted you to verify it, Lu Yin said. Xiaoxia continued to read through the book. There's another record about the inverse origin formation, which is that the people who were rescued by the inverse origin formation who cultivated the Origin Stone Technique would all be controlled. No wonder it was mentioned when we were investigating the Origin Stone Technique. It's related to the inverse origin formation. Everything was correct. Lu Yin clasped his hands behind his back. Skyminder had not been lying. The Origin Stone Technique and the inverse origin formation both matched up. Skyminder wanted to use the inverse origin formation to revive those who had cultivated the Origin Stone Technique to protect themselves when the continent had been destroyed. He wanted to use those people to fight against the human domain. It had to be said that the possibility was very high. Those who had the time and ability to cultivate the Origin Stone Technique when the continent had been destroyed were not simple people, and they were at least envoys. In other words, if he succeeded, the number of envoys under his control would far exceed that of the Star Alliance. The Star Alliance had a huge influence in the Astral Tree realm. If not for the 4 cardinal scales control, the combined Star Alliance would be terrifying. However, even the Star Alliance could not compare to the number of human-shaped source boxes. Back in the burial garden, Lu Yin had obtained a string of human-shaped source boxes, which were all powerhouses who were stronger than envoys. Only the heavens knew how many half-ancestors there were. If the Skyminder Imperial Tutor could plan something like this, Then how many people in the universe were scheming in secret? The universe was too vast, and there were too many cultivators and various cultivation civilizations. Shamrock Enterprises had tried to use pills to control cultivators, and Undying Yushan had tried to use the Undying Manual to control cultivators. Later, Hen Xian had tried to use battle force and domains to control cultivators. Too many things had happened in the universe, and Lu Yin was glad that he had discovered them in time. Otherwise, some things would have been irreversible. This was the universe that he saw at his current level. Then how did the progenitor realm experts who were above him see this starry sky? Were there other existences above the progenitor realm? The higher one's level, the more they saw. Lu Yin looked at his cosmic ring. There were only a few days left until the new void corridor was repaired, so it was time to have a chat with Xianxia. If Lu Yin's guess was correct, once the new void corridor was repaired, the first person to cause trouble for him would be Xianxia. Lu Yin left for the solar system, but he did not return to the above heavens sect. Instead, he went to Earth to retrieve the general appointment platform. Before leaving, he left behind some resources for Yaya. To him, these resources were very ordinary, but to Yaya it was different. These resources were enough for her to bridge the gap between her and some people. After returning to Earth, Lu Yin appeared above the ocean. He raised a hand and the general appointment platform shot up and floated in front of him. He looked at the simple platform and said, "I'll be counting on you for the first battle." Chapter 23-27. 10 days later, at the border between the human domain and technocracy, Lu Yin sat cross-legged on a planet in what was once the Endless Weave. A giant hellworm crawled behind him, its aura causing space to tremble. The wireless goo vibrated and Lu Yin picked it up. "Repair at any time." These words came from the Genesis Academy. Lu Yin put away the wireless goo and took out Mount Supreme, releasing Xianxia. Ever since he had imprisoned Xianxia, he hadn't let him out or spoken a single word. Now was the time. Xianxia fell out of Mount Supreme and landed on the ground. He had been heavily injured by Lu Yin, and his progenitor strength had dissipated to the point that he could barely feel it. He had also been crushed by the hellworm, and now he couldn't even compare to a half-ancestor. Lu Yin sat there quietly as he looked at the miserable Xianxia clone. Beside him was the general appointment platform, while behind him was the hellworm. He was alone. Xianxia struggled to stand up, swaying as he looked at Lu Yin without saying a word. Lu Yin looked at him. "Aren't you curious why I let you out?" Xianxia sneered and looked around. "What's your goal? Just say it. But let me tell you something. I'm a clone." Lu Yin rubbed his head in distress. "I know. Clones aren't afraid of death. I've met more than one clone like you. The first one teamed up with me to destroy the main body and take over the main body." Xianxia's gaze turned cold. "The second one teamed up with me to destroy the main body," Lu Yin continued. Xianxia's gaze turned even colder. Whether it was the first or the second, the clone had replaced the main body, which meant that the clone was working with this person. Those who cultivated the 9 clones technique were all direct descendants of Shenwu Plain, and those who worked with Zhou Xian deserved to die. "You're the third clone I've met." Lu Yin's lips curled up as he looked at Xianxia with interest. "Do you want to work with me to destroy the main body and take over the main body?" Xianxia's clone angrily rebuked. "Lu Xian, do you think I'll believe you? Clones can't replace the main body. This is a restriction of the 9 clones technique. Otherwise, Shenwu Plain would have been in chaos." Lu Yin smiled. "But I did let my clone replace my main body. The first one was the one who sought me out, and since we're friends, I helped him out. As for the second one..." He leaned forward. "I was the one who gave him the will to resist the main body." Xianxia's clone's eyes narrowed. Impossible. Xianxia's mind was clear, and he was a clone, but he could still say that a clone could not go against the main body. This meant that Xianxia had complete autonomy, but it also showed Lu Yin just how tyrannical the 9 clones technique was. For a person with independent personality to be willing to fuse with the main body, what a terrifying cultivation technique. "Nothing is impossible. Do you want to know who that person is?" Lu Yin said slowly. Xianxia's clone narrowed his eyes. "Clones can't resist the main body. This is an eternal truth. You can't trick me. Lu Xian, what are you trying to achieve?" Lu Yin let out a long sigh. "I just wanted to have a chat with you. I wanted to see what a progenitor like you thinks about this universe." Xianxia was startled, but he soon burst into laughter. Whatever you think it will be, whatever you want it to be. Lu Yin shook his head. I don't understand. If you do, then you're a progenitor. Lu Xiaoxian, you'll never become a progenitor, Xiaxinji mocked. Lu Yin raised his brows. I fought a half-ancestor as a third origin tribulation cultivator, and I even killed one. Progenitor? Xiaxinji coldly replied, you have a flaw and I can see it. There's a seal in your body and I could sense it when I fought with you. This seal is not simple and it's preventing you from becoming a progenitor. That's why you'll never become one. Lu Yin replied, when I broke through to become a melder, I broke through one seal, and when I became an explorer, I also broke through another seal. How can you be so sure that the seal on my back can suppress me? Xiaxinji disdainfully replied, so what if you can break through the seal? If you want to become a progenitor, why should it be you or Lu Xiaoxian? What do you mean? Lu Yin did not understand. Xiaxinji looked deeply at Lu Yin. Let me tell you, breaking through to progenitor isn't just about one's cultivation, but also one's mental state. Lu Xiaoxian used to be optimistic and kind like a ray of sunshine, but now you're dark and gloomy. You're a completely different person from before. If you want to become a progenitor, is it Lu Xiaoxian or the current you? Of course it's me, Lu Yin answered directly. He had already forgotten Lu Xiaoxuan's memories, so how could it be Lu Xiaoxian who became a progenitor? Xiaxinji sneered. If you don't break the seal, you won't be able to become a progenitor. Once you break the seal, you'll recover Lu Xiaoxuan's memories, emotions and personality. You'll inherit everything from Lu Xiaoxian. When that happens, will you still be you? Lu Yin's eyes went wide. Will you still be you? These words echoed in his mind. Will you still be you? When that happens, who will I be? Lu Xiaoxian or Lu Yin? At that moment, Lu Yin was at a loss. Xiaxinji burst into laughter. Your mental state will forever prevent you from breaking through to the ancestor realm. If you don't break the seal, you won't be able to become an ancestor. Once you break the seal, what about Lu Xiaoxian? Kid, you're dead for sure. No matter how strong you are right now, even if you're an invincible half-step ancestor, you'll never be able to compare to an ancestor realm expert. Lu Yin's mind was still replaying those words. When that happens, will I still be me? He had never considered this question before, and for a moment he was at a loss. Xiaxinji was shrewd and ruthless, and he had seen through Lu Yin's desire to become a progenitor. He had broken through Lu Yin's mental state with a single sentence, something that Lu Yin's former enemies had not been able to do. This was a progenitor, and even if his cultivation was no longer present, he was still a progenitor. Snort. There was a loud sound as the helldrake sneezed, waking Lu Yin up. He slowly turned to look at it. The helldrake blinked and subconsciously wanted to bare its fangs and claws, but it quickly restrained itself and bent its claws to show that it was admitting defeat. Lu Yin did not care about it as he stared at the top of the helldrake's head. More accurately, he was staring at the 9 clones technique. Xiaxinji was right. When he became a progenitor, Lu Xiaoxuan's memories would return. Then would he be Lu Xiaoxian or Lu Yin? This question was very similar to the 9 clones technique. Between Xia Luo and Xia Zhuyo, who was the main body? Xia Zhuyo was the main body, but Xia Luo had resisted his will, which meant that Xia Luo was also the main body. The same person could be split into two and both were the main body. This was the drawback of the 9 clones technique. Then could Lu Yin's mental state flaw be resolved with the help of the 9 clones technique? Lu Xiaoxian was Lu Yin and Lu Yin was Lu Yin. Regardless of whether Lu Xiaoxian or Lu Yin won in the end, only one of them could become a progenitor. Or perhaps just like progenitor Chen, all 9 clones could become progenitors. Lu Yin suddenly looked at Xiaxinji with a solemn expression. Thank you for reminding me. Xiaxinji frowned. Lu Xiaoxian, the flaw in your mental state will prevent you from ever becoming a progenitor. So what if I reminded you? You won't be able to become a progenitor. Lu Yin smiled with pride and arrogance. Who says I won't be able to become a progenitor? My mental state has a flaw. Lu Xiaoxian is here and so is Lu Yin. Then we'll separate. Isn't that what your Xia family has always done? Xiaxinji's expression changed as he had miscalculated. He had actually forgotten about the 9 clones technique. The flaw in Lu Yin's mental state was exactly the same as the 9 clones technique, and it could be resolved through the 9 clones technique. Progenitor Chen's 9 clones all became progenitors, so why can't I? If Lu Xiaoxian and Lu Yin become progenitors, then I'll be a progenitor. Thank you, Xiaxinji, Lu Yin said loudly. Just as he finished speaking, he suddenly looked in the direction of the technocracy. The new void corridor had been repaired. Outside the Genesis court in the technocracy, a distorted path of the void suddenly appeared. This was the former new void corridor. The Wang family's side of the new void corridor had been destroyed by the Everlasting Tribe, but it had finally been repaired after so many years. The moment the new void corridor was repaired, a figure stepped out and descended upon the technocracy. The Genesis court was on the verge of collapse. Headmaster Sun knew that after the new void corridor was repaired, a powerhouse would definitely descend upon the astral trees. He had assumed that it would be a half-ancestor, but he had never imagined that a progenitor would appear. Furthermore, it was the ancestor of the Xia family, Xianxia. When Xianxia walked out of the new void corridor, the entire Genesis court, including the main city and countless planets in the technocracy, trembled. Regardless of whether they were humans, beasts, or androids, they all felt an unimaginable pressure from a progenitor. The Lost Voyager army, the gigantic mechanical giant, and the Third Fleet that had once terrorized the battlefield all froze in shock, not daring to move at all. The half-androids were shocked by the progenitor's aura. This was a power that they had never imagined existed. How could it be so terrifying? Could a living being release such a power? Xianxia walked out of the new void corridor and looked around. There was a familiar aura. Huiwen had left behind some power here. The technocracy had been created by the Hui ancestor, and it had been created specifically to collect materials to create mechanical ants to deal with the Eternal's corpse kings. The Hui ancestor had also left behind a physical consciousness that could easily trap a half-ancestor, but it had been used up in the previous battle. Even if it had not been used up unless the Hui ancestor personally appeared, it would be impossible to stop Xianxia. After all, they were of the same generation. Xianxia did not care about the Hui ancestor's power, and he immediately looked in a certain direction. His lips curled up. Found it. The entire universe trembled, and the void tore apart as the divine martial sword region descended. The fifth mainland had produced progenitors before, and the sixth mainland's 3 ancestors had fought here before. However, compared to Xianxia's progenitor's world, they were too weak. When the divine martial sword region appeared, not only the technocracy but the fifth mainland and the astral beast domain also sensed it. The blood ancestor was the first to sense it, and his face turned pale. Such a terrifying progenitor's world reminded him of the 9 mountains and 8 seas that he had faced during the Daoist sex era. All of the half-ancestors looked up in shock. The Astral Beast Army and the Astral Beast Army felt uneasy, and they all prostrated themselves. Even the Yao Emperor was trembling. An extreme progenitor's power had descended upon the fifth mainland, and it had brought about a revolution in the fifth mainland's strength. It had refreshed the fifth mainland's understanding of power. At this moment, even Lu Bujing and the others who had seen many progenitors during the Astral Beast era were shocked. This progenitor's world's power was extremely rare even during their era. Fate's direct descendant, Fate's daughter, frowned. An extreme progenitor? Chapter 23-28. Wendy Yushan, Zhou Day Night, the Ghost Monkey, and Ku Wei all paled as they felt an inviolable heavenly might. No one could remain calm in the face of a progenitor's might. Even Lu Yin, who had fought with Xianxia before, felt the divine martial sword domain again. That extreme sense of despair still remained, and he found it difficult to breathe. How terrifying! Lu Yin looked up in the direction of the technocracy. Behind him, the caged Wurm was uneasy. It growled and bared its fangs, but it couldn't find its target. It wanted to escape as this power was too familiar. Xianxia's clone was excited. Lu Xiaoxian, my main body is here. You can't escape. Who in the fifth mainland can help you? Wuxia won't appear. You're dead. Lu Yin stood up and stood beside the platform with his hands behind his back as he looked in the direction of the technocracy. Soon after, a figure appeared. The divine martial sword region caused the surrounding space to completely change. One starry sky replaced the other, and under this starry sky, even breathing was controlled by Xianxia. He could easily crush Lu Yin. Fortunately, Lu Yin had the caged Wurm behind him, which made it difficult for Xianxia to act. Xianxia walked out of the void and saw the enormous caged Wurm, but he didn't see his clone. He had clearly sensed the existence of his clone. Also, what was going on with this abandoned land? Why was there no astral source? Lu Yin had already taken his clone away, but he had released it to lure Xianxia here. The technocracy was not protected by progenitor Chen's power, and it was not safe there. Lu Yin would not go there, so he had to lure Xianxia to the human domain. Since he had achieved his goal, he would not let Xianxia's clone go so easily. After all, this was a progenitor's clone. Xianxia stopped thinking about the astral source and focused on dealing with Zhou Xian. He looked at Lu Yin. "You don't seem to be afraid." Lu Yin replied, "Why should I be? What can you do to me?" Xianxia's eyes suddenly turned cold. "Without Shiwei and Wuxia, you're nothing." Suddenly, a sharp blade appeared in the starry sky. "It doesn't matter how you captured my clone or how you subdued the prison flood dragon. Today you will die." Xianxia's blade slashed out in all directions, giving Lu Yin no hope of escaping. Since the descent of the ancestral world, he was sure that there were no other ancestor realm experts in the surroundings other than the prison flood dragon. What right did a mere prison flood dragon have to stop him? Although he knew that Zhou Xian would not fight a battle that he was not confident in, Xianxia had his own confidence. Xianxia was Xianxia, someone who had been on the same level as 9 mountains and 8 seas during the era of the Daoist sect. The prison flood dragon roared and waved its claws, shattering the blade. Xianxia didn't care about the prison flood dragon at all. Although the prison flood dragon was hard to subdue, its brain wasn't good, and it couldn't unleash the true progenitor's power. It only had a huge amount of progenitor's power, and it didn't even have an ancestral world. How could it fight against Xianxia? Lu Yin looked up at the sky. The divine martial sword region was so powerful that it could shake the entire continent. No one in the 5th mainland could stand up to it. "Xianxia, do you believe in karma?" Xianxia frowned and stared at Lu Yin, especially at the stage. He'd noticed it when he'd first arrived, but he'd assumed that it was Lu Yin's own. Now, however, it seemed like that wasn't the case. If it wasn't Lu Yin's, then why would there be a stage? There could only be one explanation. Someone from the Lu family was present. However, there were no powerhouses within the divine martial sword region, so Xianxia would not have missed it. This was the ancestral world, and even the 9 mountains and 8 seas could not conceal themselves unless it was Lu Tianyi. However, this possibility was immediately rejected. If Lu Tianyi was here, then there was no need to fight, as Xianxia was definitely not his match. Everything else aside, the moment the divine seal catalog appeared, Xianxia would be finished. Xianxia ignored Lu Yin and raised his hand. An incomparably large blade appeared in outer space, distorting the sky between the technocracy and the human domain. Chains formed from divine martial sword's astral energy coiled around the blade, and each collision caused countless people's hearts to stop. Even though it was above Lu Yin's head, the entire 5th mainland could see the phantom blade, and it was a shocking scene. Lu Yin grabbed the stage with one hand, and his eyes turned into runes that caused the stage to become illusory. He released power from his heart that surrounded the various Sirius stars. Black and white mist flickered as he stepped onto the land formed from his fates, and he raised his head and said, "With my blood I summon the general." As soon as he spoke, the stage trembled, and an indescribably thick stench of blood spread out, causing the sky, earth, and stars to turn red. Lu Yin's face was heavy and his mind was dizzy. It felt as if all the blood in his body had been sucked dry. He had summoned the most terrifying creature on the stage, and it could be considered a forced summon. He had only wanted to test it out, and if it really did not work, he would have to borrow progenitor Chen's power. However, it seemed that he had succeeded. But the moment he summoned the general, the astral source within his body was completely sucked dry. Not only that, but his spiritual force was also weakened. The most obvious change was that the black and white mist in his heart was constantly being consumed. This rate of consumption shocked him, and he hurriedly took out half of his scythe and used the death energy within it to replenish his body. He was basically a vessel for this energy. The scythe had absorbed the Chi Sek's black sun, and he did not know how much death energy it contained. His astral source would not be able to support it, so he could only rely on death energy. Death energy could also be used to summon generals. The caged Wurm stared at the stage and took a few deep breaths, his gaze vigilant. Xianxia suddenly stopped as well. This stench of blood made even him apprehensive. How could there be such an enormous stench of blood? How many creatures had been killed to produce such a stench? Lu Yin gripped the scythe tightly. His body was rather weak and his vision was blurry. He was sure that the creature he had summoned was definitely a progenitor. However, this stench of blood was truly unsettling. As the stench of blood grew thicker, a blurry figure took shape and stood in the center of the blood. It was a muscular man who was 3 meters tall, and his upper body was naked. Black tattoos covered almost all of his body, and his hair was disheveled. His muscles were bulging and his veins were bulging all over his body like dragons. He held a huge, sharp-toothed weapon in his hand, and the most eye-catching thing about him was the deep gully at the back of his neck. It looked like someone had cut off his neck and then forcibly reattached it. This was a ruthless person, one who was filled with a bloodthirsty and murderous aura. The stench of blood grew thicker and thicker, and it even evaporated the divine martial force within the divine martial sword domain, causing the surroundings to grow redder and redder. That person stood in the center of this bloody stench, quietly standing there. When this person appeared, the caged Wurm growled, looking somewhat fearful. Xianxia's expression was extremely ugly. "Ichi, it's Ichi. Your Lu family has summoned Ichi." Lu Yin did not understand. What Ichi? Was that person's name? No wonder Ichi disappeared. Who does this stage belong to? Lu Feng? Or Lu Tianyi? Xianxia glared at Lu Yin as he barked. Lu Yin's face paled, but he did not have time to waste words with the man. He immediately ordered Ichi, who had just been summoned, to attack. If not for the support of the scythe's death energy, Lu Yin would not have been able to summon a progenitor. Upon receiving Lu Yin's order, the muscular man spread out his arms and roared at the sky. An indescribable bloody stench spread out, forcefully pushing away the divine martial sword domain. This was the ancestral world. At this moment, Lu Yin felt as if he was soaked in blood, and all he could see was a sea of blood. Was this person's ancestral world? Xianxia snorted coldly. He's a human devil from the burial garden, and he once devoured an entire region. He was chosen by the Lu clan without anyone noticing. The Lu clan will pay the price for those who died tragically at Ichi's hands. Ichi raised the giant blade in his hand, which looked like sharp teeth, and slashed upwards. Bang! Ripples spread out, spreading into the distance like a tsunami in the universe. Countless planets were crushed, and a corner of the fifth mainland was torn apart. Lu Yin felt as if his brain had been hammered and he almost fell over. There was a crack as the giant blade was sliced apart, and the blade pierced half an inch into Ichi's body. Xianxia coldly replied, "If that human demon hadn't been so fast, how could he have survived until he was summoned by your Lu family? We weren't even progenitors when he committed his sins. Once we become progenitors, he'll be nothing." He then clenched his fist and several giant chains appeared in the void and wrapped around Ichi. Lu Yin felt dizzy. Ichi seemed powerful and had appeared with a powerful aura, but in reality he was probably about the same level as the sixth mainland's 3 progenitors. Perhaps he was a bit stronger, but he wasn't Xianxia's match at all. Lu Yin had been overjoyed, but it made sense. If Ichi had the strength of 9 mountains and 8 seas, then Lu Yin wouldn't have been able to summon the Grim Reaper's left arm. "Hellworm, bite him," Lu Yin ordered. There was no other way, as Ichi couldn't stop Xianxia. Hellworm roared, baring its fangs as it charged towards Xianxia. To Xianxia, the Hellworm was even more of a threat than Ichi. Even when Ichi had been alive, he had only been an ordinary progenitor. He had only been able to commit his sins because he could run fast and had the protection of the Eternals. After they had become progenitors, Ichi had gone into hiding. The 9 mountains and 8 seas covered the sky, and a progenitor like Ichi didn't even dare to show his face. The reason why Xianxia had been surprised at first was because of Ichi's reputation before they had become progenitors. However, the Hellworm was different. Although it wasn't very smart and didn't have an ancestral world, its skin was thick and tough, and it could take a beating. When it cooperated with Ichi, it could cause trouble for Xianxia. The Hellworm was not biting Xianxia just because of Lu Yin's orders. The Hellworm had been suppressed in the divine martial plane for a long time, and it hated and feared Xianxia. It definitely wouldn't have dared to attack alone, but when it cooperated with Ichi, its bite became more and more ferocious. Its claws and tail lashed out, and it would sometimes even slam its body against Xianxia's blade. Ichi relied on his bloodthirsty ancestral world to continuously resist the divine martial sword region, and then he used his giant blade to attack Xianxia. For a time even Xianxia found it difficult to deal with the hellworm and he was surrounded. Lu Yin panted heavily as this couldn't go on. He wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Once the death aura ran out, Qi would be gone and the hellworm would definitely flee. It seemed that he would have to rely on Progenitor Chen's strength. Lu Yin stared at the battlefield, thinking of a suitable time to deal a blow to Xianxia. At that moment the Blood Ancestor arrived and looked at the battlefield in shock. That must be 9 mountains and 8 seas. Lu Yin was shocked. Senior, why are you here? The Blood Ancestor had ordered that no one should approach the battlefield. Even senior brother Qingping, who was confident that he could fight against a progenitor, had warned him that he would be facing Xianxia himself, not a progenitor clone. Thank you. Back in the cycle of reincarnation. Zhang Daming Tishanjul, please follow the wind. Update 4 times a day. Thanks for your support and rewards. I'll add more chapters. I've been too busy with the wedding recently and I'm very tired. Thankfully I have the support of my brothers. Thank you. The next volume is about to begin. Who will fight me? Chapter 23-29. The Blood Ancestor watched the sky collapse. How could I not come when a progenitor is descending? He then looked at Lu Yin. Although I've almost fallen from the progenitor realm, I can still delay him for a while. If anything happens you must leave immediately. Senior, Lu Yin wanted to say something, but the Blood Ancestor raised a hand to stop him. You can borrow Progenitor Chen's power, but you should know that even Progenitor Chen would not have an easy time dealing with 9 mountains and 8 seas. You may be borrowing Progenitor Chen's power, but that does not mean that you are Progenitor Chen. Lu Yin, you are the most gifted human I've ever seen, and I firmly believe that you will not be weaker than Progenitor Chen in the future. You might even reach the level of an ancient ancestor. If there is hope, then there is hope. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for the sake of humanity. A half-crippled person like me should do whatever I can, and I also hope to leave some good karma for the 6th mainland. Lu Yin was impressed. Senior's breadth of mind is admirable, but I have prepared more than one move to deal with Xianxia. The Blood Ancestor was astonished. Someone else is helping? Or is it a power vessel? Of course it was not a power vessel, as Xianxia had long since taken precautions against something like the slippers. If someone wanted to use the slippers to ambush Xianxia, then the slippers would be stolen instead. That would not be worth it. There was a howl as caged Drake's body crashed to the ground. Several enormous chains bound him, preventing him from moving. Qi raised his blade and slashed upwards, bringing with it an indistinct blade shadow. It should be some sort of progenitor battle technique. White bones formed a staircase beneath his feet, and with each step he ascended his power increased by a bit. Xianxia's gaze turned cold and he allowed Qi to attack. In an instant, Qi disappeared and reappeared where he had been a second ago. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. Not good, this was the power of time. Xianxia casually struck out with a palm, and his divine martial aura crushed Qi, causing half of his body to shatter. The Blood Ancestor's face twitched. So this is the power of a peak progenitor from that era. Kid, no matter what tricks you have up your sleeves, run first. He then prepared to go all out. It seemed that even Caged Drake and that brute were no match. Lu Yin knew that Xianxia was very strong, comparable to 9 mountains and 8 seas. However, Xianxia's strength had still exceeded his expectations. At the same time, Lu Yin had gained a deeper understanding of Wuxia's strength. In the astral tree domain, Xianxia had not attacked that many times. At first he had casually attacked, but he had been stopped by the Fog Ancestor and Lu Yin's various methods. Later on, in order to show off his true strength and show off in front of the Fog Ancestor, Xianxia had unleashed his ancestral world. That power was unparalleled and Lu Yin could not comprehend it at all. The Fog Ancestor had not been able to stop it either. Senior Wuxia's appearance had saved Lu Yin's life. At that time, Lu Yin had not been able to directly sense Xianxia's strength, as there had been no other progenitor to compare him to. Now he saw the comparison. Qi was a progenitor after all, yet he was suppressed by Xianxia. He was helpless against the mighty power of time. How did senior brother Wuxia deal with Xianxia? I'm really going to have to go all out, Lu Yin muttered to himself as he looked at the stage. His eyes turned into runes as a miniature candle god appeared on his shoulder. He had to think of a way to borrow the rune lines of the stage. The Candle God had cultivated the creation realm's universe evolution scripture and had turned himself into a candle. Based on this stage should have been transformed by Lu Jian. Since the Candle God could return to his miniature form and allow Lu Yin to borrow his strength, then this stage might be able to do the same. He had to try. Lu Jian and the Candle God were not on the same level. The Candle God was a peak envoy who had cultivated the universe evolution scripture and turned himself into a candle. He now had rune lines at the level of a half-progenitor. On the other hand, Lu Jian was a half-progenitor who cultivated the universe evolution scripture to break through to the progenitor realm. He was a cultivator of the universe evolution scripture that was second only to the symbol ancestor. If Lu Yin could borrow his strength, then wouldn't that mean that he could borrow the strength of a progenitor who cultivated the universe evolution scripture? Even though it was just a guess, Lu Yin had to try under these circumstances. Progenitor Chen's strength was his final trump card, and only Xianxia had come. If by Wang Yuan or Wang Fan came as well, then how could Lu Yin resist after using all of his trump cards? Universe Evolution Scripture. Infinite Realm. Lu Yin grabbed the stage and used the Candle God's rune lines to continuously draw out the rune lines from the stage. He did not know how to use the stage's rune lines, so he could only try. In the distance, caged Drake and Ichi were constantly being suppressed, and Xianxia grew impatient. A clone walked out and faced Lu Yin directly. The clone waved both hands, causing chains to form in the void and wrap around Lu Yin. The blood ancestor took a step forward and prepared to go all out. Lu Yin tossed the slipper to the blood ancestor. Senior, use this. The blood ancestor subconsciously caught the slipper and swatted it at the chains. With the blood ancestor's half-crippled strength and without his progenitor's realm, he was probably not as powerful as senior brother Qing Ping. How could he block Lu Yin's identity? Even if it was just a clone, this clone was still a progenitor. It was not easy to reach the progenitor realm, but Xianxia belonged to the era of the Daoist sect. Back then there had been many powerhouses and he had been able to compete with those powerhouses. No matter which era he had been placed in, he would have been an absolute elite. If he had not been defeated by progenitor Qin, then Xianxia's radiance would have been able to be traced back to the era of the Above Heaven sect. With a bang, the chains were shattered and turned back into divine martial qi. Xianxia's clone looked at the slipper in the blood ancestor's hand with apprehension. At the same time he stared at the blood ancestor. It's you. He recognized Lu Yin. When Lu Yin had broken through to become an envoy, he had faced off against the astral tree. The blood ancestor was the progenitor behind him. If not for the blood ancestor, they would not have been afraid of the fifth mainland. After all, they had not been able to gauge the blood ancestor's strength. But now it seemed that the blood ancestor was just a piece of trash. The blood ancestor was shocked by the power of the slipper in his hand. He had many questions that he wanted to ask, but he did not have the time. Lu Yin did not know how many progenitor clones Xianxia could summon, as he could not be like progenitor Qin, who had 9 clones that were all progenitors. However, even if he only had 3 progenitor clones, he could still summon another one. Just as Lu Yin was thinking about this, the rune lines on the surface of the commander appointment platform suddenly increased to a terrifying degree. Others could not see it, but Lu Yin could. At the same time, in the Neoverse, home of the gods, the mirror god stared blankly in Lu Yin's direction. He saw boundless rune lines instantly cover the entire fifth mainland. Was this the power of the rune progenitor? The commander appointment platform was naturally not the rune progenitor's power, but Lu Yin's guess was correct. Lu Jian and the Candle God had both cultivated their own innate gifts. The Candle God had been a peak envoy, and after becoming a candle, he had gained the rune lines of a half-progenitor. Lu Jian had originally been a half-progenitor, but after becoming the commander appointment platform, he had gained the rune lines of a progenitor. Lu Yin's eyes went wide and he laughed maniacally. On the other side, Xianxia's main body was aghast. His divine martial sword domain had been pushed aside by another power. It was the power of a progenitor again. What was going on? He stared at the blood ancestor. Was it that person? No, he had not used his progenitor's world, and his body had already weakened to the point that he had fallen out of the progenitor realm. Where had this power come from? Xianxia would never have dreamed that this power would come from the commander appointment platform. The fact that the commander appointment platform could summon General Yi Qi had already surprised him. How could a single commander appointment platform have 2 progenitors? Unless the commander appointment platform's master was a progenitor. But that was exactly what had happened. Lu Yin sensed the unimaginably majestic progenitor rune lines, and he suddenly looked at Xianxia. Xianxia's clone raised a hand and clenched his fist. Xianxia's clone's expression changed drastically. He could not see the rune lines, but he could clearly sense a threatening power coming from all directions. This threat caused him to immediately vanish and fuse into his main body. With a roar, the caged Wurm tumbled towards Xianxia while Yi Qi frantically rushed forward. He had been summoned, and even if he was smashed to pieces, as long as Lu Yin had an endless supply of death energy, he would be able to continuously recover and become a monster that disgusted Xianxia. Xianxia's expression turned ugly. Although the caged Wurm had no intelligence and did not have an progenitor's world, it was still very difficult to fight against as its defenses were extremely high. Yi Qi had made Xianxia realize how troublesome and disgusting the Lu family was. Fighting against someone from the Lu family who had awakened the commander appointment platform's innate gift was a nightmare. Even the monsters from the everlasting race would not be able to withstand it, and those who had been summoned could not be killed. The Lu family also had a lot of power that could be used to summon generals. Xianxia could not understand how Lu Yin had managed to summon a progenitor. Was it that half of Golian? Not only that, but Lu Yin had also borrowed the power of the commander appointment platform's rune lines to forcefully break open a space within the divine martial sword domain. Although this space was very small, it had still been broken open. Coupled with Yi Qi's blood sea, this made things even more troublesome for Xianxia. The most troublesome thing for Xianxia was the last power that had appeared. He could tell that it was Old Fu's power. In the 9 mountains and 8 seas, Huiwen was astute, Xiaoshang was a battle maniac, Shiwei was good at thinking, and Xianxia was lazy. Old Fu was unfathomable. In the face of Old Fu's power, caged Wurm Yi Qi, and the strangeness of this region of space, Xianxia decided to temporarily retreat. If he couldn't take them down alone, then he would take on 2. When he thought of this, Xianxia suddenly retreated and looked at the distant Lu Yin. He disappeared with a bone-piercing killing intent, and the divine martial sword domain vanished at the same time. The caged Wurm pounced on nothing, but it bared its fangs and brandished its claws as if it had won. When he saw that Xianxia had retreated, Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief and removed the summoning. Yi Qi disappeared and the blood ancestor gripped the slippers. He left. Lu Yin nodded. The blood ancestor was solemn. Are you sure? Lu Yin replied, yes. The blood ancestor heaved a sigh of relief and squatted down without a care for his image. He bitterly said, 2 progenitors a half crippled me, and you borrowed the symbol progenitor's power to force him away. As expected of Xianxia, an absolute expert from the Daoist sex era. Lu Yin looked in the direction of the technocracy. If Xianxia had gone all out, then these forces might not have been able to do anything to him. However, Xianxia's enemies were not just Lu Yin, but also the Eternals. He even had to guard against the 4-way scales and the other 3 families, so it was impossible for him to go all out. He had only retreated this time because he wanted to find a more reliable way to deal with Lu Yin. Xianxia would come back a second time. Lu Yin took out the wireless goo and ordered, gather. He wanted to gather all of the 5th mainland's strength and show the cosmic tree of trees what an abandoned land was. This was the 5th mainland. The gathering point was located several weaves away from this location. Lu Yin had gathered them for the cosmic tree of trees to see, not for the progenitor's battle. These people could not be killed by the shockwaves. Lu Yin and Xianxia's battle had practically turned the 5th mainland upside down. Although it had not affected much, the progenitor's power had been felt by the entire 5th mainland. Many people were worried and they anxiously waited for the results. Finally they heard 2 words, gather. These 2 words represented that Lu Yin had defeated a powerful enemy, and that enemy had been a progenitor. Thank you for your support, brothers. The next volume is about to begin. Who will fight me? Chapter 23:30. Although most people did not know that Lu Yin had defeated a powerful progenitor like Xianxia, it was enough to know that he was a progenitor. To them, progenitors were all the same. The Great Eastern Alliance's Zhou Xian army, Heavenly Sin army, and the Giant army all gathered towards the west. The Celestial Sect's Celestial army and the Astral Beast army moved out at the same time. From the Hall of Honor, emissaries walked out one by one. They came from the Star Alliance and there were a total of 63 of them. They were led by Zhang Lin and headed west. Auras filled various regions as half-ancestors walked out. The 8 Elysian Gate sect masters were here to teach and patrol. There were 15 half-ancestors in total. The entire fifth mainland had come alive. The ancestral turtle looked towards the west and moved. If the fifth mainland was viewed as a map, then the dots that represented the powerful cultivators were all gathered towards the place Lu Yin had pointed out. The various armies added up to tens of millions of people. This was the true gathering of the fifth mainland, and it was even more thorough than when they had fought against the Eternals. Back then Lu Yin had not been qualified to command everyone, but now Lu Yin was that person. In the endless weaves, the blood ancestor was worried. Are we really going to war? Lu Yin laughed. We'll see. The blood ancestor sighed as he did not know how to resolve this. Once war broke out, the losses to humanity would be immeasurable and only the Eternals would benefit. But what could he do? Even if he gave up on Lu Yin's blood feud, the cosmic astral tree would not let him live. There was only one solution: fight until the cosmic astral tree gave up. In the Innerverse, in outer space, when Xianxia looked at Xianxia standing beside a spacecraft and walked over. What are you thinking about? Xianxia looked at the sky. The difference is too great. Xianxia knew that he was referring to the difference between them. Back then, when the Astral Combat Academy sent students to train, he went to Shenwu continent. When he left, I was the one who picked him up. At that time, the difference between us was like the gap between heaven and earth. No one thought that he would catch up to us, let alone surpass us. But now it's the opposite. Xianxia replied, "Don't think about it, cousin. He's a monster." Xianxia laughed. Once upon a time, many people called them monsters. When did the word monster become a compliment? This war is no small matter. You shouldn't have come. It's not too late to go back now. Xianxia looked at Xianxia and said solemnly. Xianxia shook her head. It's an order from above and I can't go against it. I'm a cruiser, so I can't avoid it. No one is looking for trouble with you, Xianxia said. Xianxia replied, I want to see what kind of enemy has gathered the entire fifth mainland. Even the people from the sixth mainland and the astral beasts from the astral beast domain have gathered here. At this moment, someone reported that the Sword faction's flying ship had been spotted in the distance. The Sword sect's flying ship was easy to recognize. It was a huge sword. Ah, Lu Qianjue, you came out too. I thought you were going to die of old age on Sword Mountain. Zizai laughed. Lu Qianjue stepped into the Wen clan's spacecraft and glanced around. It seems like the Wen clan has really turned out in full force. You even brought your juniors with you. Zizai said helplessly, there's nothing we can do about it. The orders of the sects above cannot be disobeyed. What, does your sword sect still have a trick up its sleeve? Lu Qianjue calmly replied, of course not. Old friend, we're in trouble this time. It's even more troublesome than facing those monsters from the Neo-Human Alliance, Zizai said to Lu Qianjue as he dispersed the bystanders. Lu Qianjue's tone was gloomy. This isn't an era where you and I can make decisions. Even the Hall of Honor can't change the current situation. Only he can. Zizai nodded. When he first unified the Outerverse, I thought that he had reached his peak. Later on, he disintegrated our alliance and then unified the Innerverse. I also thought that he had reached his peak, but I didn't think that this was actually his peak. The sixth mainland, the astral beast domain, and even those from the era of the above heavens are all under his control. He's truly terrifying. Lu Qianjue fell silent. Terrifying? Some people were destined not to be compared to, as they were too far away. They were geniuses who had transcended the constraints of their time. Not far behind them, the Northline flow zone was also rushing west. The current head of the Lily family was Lily N, but Lily Liana had died 20 years ago at the hands of a corpse king. Sis, the entire fifth mainland has gathered here. How can we participate in a war of this scale? Why did the Daoist ask us to gather here as well? Lily Shuer was worried. This was also the worry of the entire Northline flow zone, or rather the entire fifth mainland. They did not have the qualifications to participate in a war where everyone was gathered. Even when the sixth mainland had invaded, they had only sent a portion of their people to participate, but now, almost all of them had been mobilized. Lily N remained calm. If only a portion of our people were sent, then I would be worried. But now there's no need to worry. It's unlikely that a war will break out. Why? Lily Shuer did not understand. Lily and replied, the Daozi won't sacrifice the weak. What's the point of us participating in this war? Are we sending ourselves to our deaths? But the order has already been given, so we must participate. The only way is to intimidate the enemy. Even if we don't fight, we can still intimidate the enemy. So the enemy this time is definitely not the Eternals, but an intelligent life form like us. Lily Shuer guessed, could it be that some terrifying life form has appeared in the astral wilderness? Lily and did not know either, as she was not qualified to know the details. After sending Lily Shuer away, Lily and raised her hand, revealing the fates and in her palm. More than 20 years ago her best friend Xiaoyi had died because of this, giving her a chance to get close to Lu Yin and gain some merit. However, this matter had been delayed for more than 20 years and now it was time to hand it over to Lu Yin. The Lily family's most glorious era had only been when they had the right to speak within the North Line flow zone. They had dreamed of leaving the North Line flow zone and this was their chance. A single word from Lu Yin was enough to allow anyone to ascend to the heavens. In the outerverse, a lone man was walking through space alone. Suddenly, a sword slash appeared in the distance, heading straight for the man's back. The man turned around and easily shattered the sword slash. He looked into the distance and saw that many people had appeared. Most of them were descendants of the martial ancestors, and Xiaoqing was also there. Fan Shun, you traitor! How dare you appear here again? One of the men cursed. He was the one who had attacked just now, and many people around him glared at Fan Shun, wanting to attack as well. Fan Shun was indifferent. Save some star energy to save your life on the battlefield. Even so, we'll still kill you, you traitor, someone else said. They had no enmity with Fan Shun, but Fan Shun had led the Fan family to betray the humans and join the Eternals. He had even become the city lord of the first Eternal Kingdom that the Eternals had established in the Innerverse. This had infuriated countless people on the Sixth Mainland, and they had wanted to tear Fan Shun apart. However, Fan Shun had not betrayed the Fan family, and he had remained behind alone. He had been cursed by the countless people who could attack him at any time. Fan Chen's betrayal had been forced. Kuei Luo had revealed that Fan Chen had captured the previous Valley Master of Cloud Valley, Jian Jibei, which had forced Fan Chen to no longer have a foothold in the Sixth Mainland. The 9 families hated Fan Shun not only because of the Fan family's betrayal, but also because of Zhou Xian. A year ago, Zhou Xian had gotten drunk and wanted to avenge Valley Master Cloud Valley's swordsman. He had tried to cause trouble for Vice City Master Zhou Xian, who had been transporting supplies from the technocracy, but he had been killed by Vice City Master Zhou Xian. This incident had caused the 9 families to become the laughingstock of the Sixth Mainland, and they had always wanted to get rid of this laughingstock. Killing Fan Shun was one of their methods. The Fan family was Cloud Valley's mortal enemy, and Zhou Xiao had tried to help Cloud Valley's swordsman, but he had died tragically. If they helped Cloud Valley eliminate Fan Shun, not only would they regain some face, but they would also gain the favor of many people. This was because the Sixth Mainland was currently filled with hatred for the Fan family. Fan Shun's situation was not good. Soon the people of the 9 surnames made their moves, including their good friends. However, they posed no threat to Fan Shun, and Fan Shun did not go on a killing spree. Killing the 9 families would be too troublesome. Although the martial ancestor had died, he had died at the hands of the Eternals for the sake of the humans. This achievement was enough to benefit the 9 families for billions of years. As long as they did not actively betray the humans, nothing would happen to them. Above the Sky sect has summoned everyone. How long do you want to fight? Xiaoqing asked. One of the 9 families answered, we'll talk about it after we eliminate that traitor Fan Shun. Fan Shun's gaze turned cold. So, you want to keep the Daozi waiting? When he said this, the hearts of the 9 families trembled. There was only one person who could become a Daozi, and that person was Lu Yin, the current ruler of the Fifth Mainland. They dared to run amok in the Sixth Mainland, and with their martial ancestors' achievements, they were not even afraid of facing a half-ancestor. However, when a Daozi was mentioned, their expressions changed. That person could wipe out the entire 9 families with a single sentence, and no one dared to oppose him. Xiaoqing's eyes flickered. The 9 families had run amok in the Sixth Mainland, so who could make them so afraid? It could only be Lu Yin. They had clearly adventured together in the Daoist sect's ruins, and the difference between their strengths had not been that great. How had it become so great now? At that moment, a figure walked out and a powerful aura suppressed everyone present to the point where they could not breathe. When Xiaoqing saw this figure, she was the first to react. She bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Lan Xian." Fan Shun then bowed as well. "Greetings, Lan Xian." The 9 families bowed in unison. "Greetings, Lan Xian." Lan Xian calmly looked at them all. A great battle is imminent, and instead of saving star energy to deal with the battlefield, what kind of people are killing each other here? One of the 9 families respectfully said, reporting to Lan Xian, "This person is Fan Shun, a traitor to the human race. Fan Chen is the city lord of the Eternal Kingdom." Lan Xian looked at Fan Shun. Fan Shun respectfully replied, "My family has betrayed the human race, and this junior has betrayed my family." Lan Xian nodded. "I know about the Fan family. Are you going to the battlefield?" "Above the Sky sect has summoned me. This junior is only willing to die on the battlefield," Fan Shun replied. Lan Xian looked in the direction of the technocracy. "You betrayed your family but were not accepted by the human race. Do you regret it?" Fan Shun calmly replied, "No." The 9 families wanted to say something, but when Lan Xian glanced at them, they hurriedly lowered their heads. Use your own methods to prove yourself even if you have a clear conscience. After all, you are a member of the Fan family, and you have to make up for the Fan family's mistakes. Chapter 23:31. After hearing Lan Xian's words, Fan Shun respectfully replied, "This junior understands." Lan Xian looked at the people from the 9 families. A battlefield recruitment is no small matter. Don't make a mistake. She then vanished. The people from the 9 families heaved sighs of relief and glared at Fan Shun angrily, but they did not dare to attack again. Fan Shun did not even look at them as he headed to the recruitment site alone. Lu Yin had gathered the entire 5th mainland in one area, and with so many people gathered together, it was naturally easy for conflicts to arise. Old grudges and grudges were gradually revealed, but with a roar from the Hellworm, the entire region fell silent. No one dared to be impudent and everyone silently gathered. Lu Yin stood atop the Hellworm's head and watched as countless people gathered. There were half-ancestors, envoys, enlighters, hunters and countless other cultivators. These people all obeyed him as he was the person at the helm of the 5th mainland. As more and more people gathered, more and more people looked at him with reverence, fear and fanaticism. Regardless of whether these people hated Lu Yin or supported him, they all obeyed his orders. At this moment, Lu Yin did not need to consider whether or not he had any enemies here, nor did he need to consider balancing the various parties. He did not need to consider anything at all. Even the powerhouses from the era of the Above Heaven sect had to listen to him, even if they had their own schemes. Suddenly, a heroic spirit surged from Lu Yin's chest and transformed into a warring state that surged out and boiled the void. It continued to expand from the initial 1.5 kilometers to 5 kilometers, then 5 kilometers, then 5 kilometers, then 5 kilometers, then 5 kilometers. The void curled up like a piece of charred paper, and with Lu Yin at the center, it was as if he had ignited the dark universe. An indescribable heroic spirit nearly caused Lu Yin's heart to explode. He clenched his fists, and the warring state suddenly paused before releasing with a bang. It was as if it had broken free of its reins, and it spread out to millions of kilometers away. The universe was vast, and millions of kilometers of territory was but a drop in the ocean. However, when Lu Yin condensed this battle force, its strength far surpassed what it had been before. Lu Yin had used his Dai's 6 pips to fuse into Henye's body, allowing him to comprehend his domain and surpass Mr. Tang's. He was no longer a weak point, and now that he had gathered the entire 5th mainland, both humans and beasts obeyed his orders. This heroic spirit had allowed him to break through the warring state realm. He did not even know how powerful his warring states might have become. Lu Yin withdrew his hand and Sengoku shrank in the distance before finally disappearing. Sengoku was very strong. He could feel that he could fight against 7 or 8 origin tribulation experts with just Sengoku. However, Sengoku was just a Sengoku. What he wanted more was the purple-black substance like Hen Exin, which was more powerful than Sengoku. He had only seen 2 people use it in this era. One was Hen Xian and the other was Ancient God. It was impossible for him to get the cultivation method from Ancient God. Only Hen Xian could learn it. But that would have to wait until the matter of the starry sky tree was resolved. In the starry Skytree world, the eternal progenitor realm corpse kings that had been fighting with Bai Wangyuan and the others all retreated. Before Bai Wangyuan and the others could react, Xianxia returned. His battle with Lu Yin in the Fifth Mainland had not lasted long, and this time, it was his progenitor clone that had returned. "Why are you back? Is Lu Xiaoxian dead?" asked Wang Fan. He looked at Xianxia in shock. "You're not the real body." Xianxia's clone spoke of the battle on the Fifth Mainland with a gloomy expression. Bai Wangyuan and the others fell silent, but at the same time, an uncontrollable killing intent spread through their hearts. Bai Wangyuan sneered, "A brat at 3 origin tribulations actually managed to beat you back. Should I be glad that I discovered him early or regret that I didn't?" Wang Fan said, "And he's only at 3 origin tribulations. Once he reaches 6 or even half a progenitor, will anyone be able to stop him?" He then looked at Xianxia's clone and asked, "Who's that general appointment platform?" Xianxia replied, "That's right. It should be Lu Jian's." "Lu Jian? He should be dead by now." The dragon ancestor was flabbergasted. They were all from the same era. Even though the dragon ancestor had become a progenitor later, he had lived for so long because of the White Dragon clan's lifespan. When he was born, his parents had not even been born yet, so they naturally knew Lu Jian. Xianxia's clone said, "I was just guessing. The only person in the Lu clan who could cultivate Old Fu's power to such an extent was Lu Jian. He shouldn't have been able to become a progenitor, but it seems that Old Fu's power helped him break through to the progenitor realm. Otherwise he wouldn't have been able to beat me." Lu Jian, Prison Dragon, and Yi Qi, who was summoned from the general appointment platform. "You've indeed had a tough battle." Bai Wangyuan looked deeply at Xianxia. "But that shouldn't be enough to stop you from killing Lu Xiaoxian." Xianxia looked up. "You'll know once you try. You still want to go to the Fifth Mainland?" The Mist Ancestor's voice rang out. She had arrived and was sizing up Xianxia with interest. "Looks like you've suffered a loss." Xianxia stared at her. "You know how powerful Lu Xiaoxian is on the Fifth Mainland, so you didn't stop me. You're sure that I can't kill him, right?" The Mist Ancestor raised her brows. "Do I have the obligation to explain myself to you?" "You." Xianxia was furious. Bai Wangyuan stepped forward and stood beside Xianxia. "I'll go with you. Lu Xiaoxian must die." Xianxia nodded and turned to leave without even looking at the Mist Ancestor. The Mist Ancestor frowned. "The Eternals are retreating at a time like this so that we can fight amongst ourselves. You'll definitely cause a huge war in the Fifth Mainland, and the Eternals will only benefit from it. If we don't kill Lu Xiaoxian, he'll always be a threat to humanity," Wang Fan said. The Mist Ancestor snorted. "I can stop him from starting a civil war, but he won't be willing to let the Eternals benefit. Why not start a civil war?" Bai Wangyuan looked at the Mist Ancestor. "If you can really make him stop." He paused. Everyone else looked at him, waiting for him to continue. The Mist Ancestor's heart skipped a beat as she stared at Bai Wangyuan. Bai Wangyuan looked up. "I want to kill him even more." "Why?" The Mist Ancestor didn't understand. Bai Wangyuan asked coldly. "Lu Xiaoxian won't forget his hatred for the four-way scales. If he stops now, he'll be able to take revenge in the future. With his innate talent, even if he can't break through to the ancestral realm, he'll still be a threat to us. We've lived far longer than him, so even if he can't deal with us, he can deal with our descendants. Who can stop him now?" The Lu family dominates the Fifth Mainland because their bloodline has never been cut off. From the legendary ancestor of the Lu family to Lu Tianyi, Lu Feng, and Lu Qi, which one of them isn't a genius? Which one of them can't rule over an entire generation? The Lu family is too terrifying. If we allow Lu Xiaoxian to grow, the future generation will still belong to the Lu family. The Mist Ancestor didn't refute this. This was the truth. No matter how outstanding the Bai, Xia, and Wang families were, they couldn't compare to the Lu family. The Lu family was too terrifying. If even one of their direct descendants could awaken a general platform innate talent, they would be invincible. Xianxia's expression became unsightly. Lu Jian is a progenitor, but he's able to fight against ordinary progenitors with the help of the progenitor stage. He's even close to Old Fu's strength. He's a direct descendant of the Lu clan. How can we let him live? The Mist Ancestor was shocked. "Lu Jian." Xianxia sneered. Don't you know him very well? Stop pretending. He was only able to beat me back because of Lu Jian's general platform. The mist ancestor raised her brows. What was that supposed to mean? Why didn't he mention Xiaoshang's strength? Given Xiaoxinji's personality, he shouldn't have mentioned Xiaoshang's strength. Lu Jian's general platform? She remembered now, there was indeed such a thing. That kid had actually used the general platform to force Xiaoxinji back? What was going on in the universe? Even though the mist ancestor was experienced and knowledgeable, she still couldn't react in time. Bai Wangyuan stepped over her and headed to the fifth mainland. At that moment, another figure appeared. It was Wuxia. Xiaoxinji and the others were on guard when they saw Wuxia. Wuxia, why aren't you guarding your territory? What are you doing here? Xiaoxinji angrily rebuked. Bai Wangyuan stared at Wuxia. What do you want? Wuxia was calm as he raised a finger. What do you mean? The dragon ancestor asked in a low voice. Wuxia calmly replied, only one person is allowed to cause trouble for my junior brother here, not one more. Xiaoxinji was enraged. Wuxia, are you determined to go against the four-way scales? Do you want to die? Wuxia looked at him. You can't kill me. Xiaoxinji subconsciously wanted to attack. Bai Wangyuan frowned. Wuxia, who exactly is your master? The mist ancestor also looked at Wuxia curiously. What kind of person was a master who could nurture ancestral realm cultivators and a freak like Lu Yin? Throughout history, such a person should have been very famous. You don't know him, Wuxia said. Wang Fan's tone was cold. Stop making up stories. With our status, how could we not know him? Wuxia, you joined the Lu family a long time ago, so of course you would help Lu Xiaoxian when he appeared. There's no such master. No. The mist ancestor interrupted. I remember that kid having a senior brother on the fifth mainland. What was his name again? Qingping. Yes, it was Qingping. Qingping? Why does that sound so familiar? The dragon ancestor muttered to himself. Suddenly he remembered. Qingping? The one who snuck into the sovereign realm to compete for the origin item and defeated the Lu family's elites? Bai Wangyun's eyes trembled as he looked at the mist ancestor. The Qingping who came during the last origin wheel sacrifice? The mist ancestor rolled his eyes. How would I know him? I only know his name. The others looked at Wuxia. Wuxia replied, that's right. My junior brother came here and defeated someone from the Lu family. Bai Wangyuan and the others exchanged glances. Who really was this person? Did that mean that they were really fellow disciples? They had always believed that Wuxia had made this up just to find an excuse to save Lu Xiaoxian. But now it seemed that this might not be the case. Wang Fan stepped forward. No matter what, Wuxia, your ambition is to eliminate the redbacks and protect humanity. Lu Xiaoxuan's existence will definitely be the source of the human civil war. Are you willing to give up so many years of perseverance for him? Wuxia clasped his hands behind his back. My junior brother alone is enough to support the entire human race. Chapter 23:32. How arrogant! Bai Wangyuan barked. How can Lu Xiaoxian compare to Xianxia? Wang Fan snorted. A single person's power is limited. If a single person could protect the human race, then the progenitor wouldn't have died. If even the progenitor couldn't protect her, then Lu Xiaoxian can't. Wuxia, move aside. Wuxia, move aside. The dragon ancestor stepped forward. Xiaoxinji barked. Wuxia, move aside. The mist ancestor finally spoke up. You're the ones who started the war, not Lu Xiaoxian. Bai Wangyuan's expression turned ugly. Wuxia, are you really going to stop us? Wuxia replied, I already said that only one of you can cause trouble for my junior brother. If he can't stop you, then it's because he's useless. However, if you gang up on him, then I won't ignore it, and neither will my master. Who's your master? He must have a name. Bai Wangyuan and the others weren't interested in Wuxia or Lu Yin, but rather the mysterious master that they were talking about. They wanted to see what kind of person this master had taught. Lu Yin had relied on 3 origin tribulations to survive multiple attacks from progenitors. He had also fought against 4 half-ancestors by himself and even killed one. Qingping had snuck into the astral tree domain and defeated the most outstanding elites of the current generation, including those from the Lu family. He had even fought against Xiaoxinji's progenitor clone. Wuxia had seemed unremarkable, but he had been able to block Xianxia's divine martial blade domain and even break through Xianxia's time force. Any one of these three would be a headache to deal with, and they couldn't have been taught by an ordinary person. Now that they all had the same master, how could they not care? However, no matter how they asked, Wuxia wouldn't answer. He only said, "You don't know him." Wang Fan was so angry that he wanted to attack. "Xianxia, go by yourself. We can't fight in the ruler realm and let the Eternals laugh at us," Bai Wangyuan said coldly as he stared at Wuxia. Xianxia's eyes flashed. "Don't worry, I'll kill Zhou Xian." He then vanished. Wuxia remained calm as he looked at the battlefield behind him. The Eternals' withdrawal had given them a chance to fight amongst themselves. Not much time had passed since they had exiled the Lu family, and now they were trying to eliminate Zhou Xian. But everything was the Eternals. This period of time was too short for the Eternals. It was so short that they had the ability to set up a trap. He believed in his master's judgment. His junior brother was definitely not a redback and would not be the root cause of the human civil war. But how could he break out of this situation? Just because they didn't make a move doesn't mean that there aren't other progenitors, the mist ancestor said indifferently beside Wuxia. Wuxia replied, "I know. My mission is to stop them." They weren't the only half-martial ancestors in the starry sky tree, but how many people could Wuxia stop? He had tried his best. After Xianxia's clone merged with his body, a figure walked out of the new sky corridor. It was Bai Xing. Xianxia had sent his clone to the ruler's realm to ask for help while he remained in the new sky corridor to prevent Lu Yin from causing any trouble. Xianxia was also aware of everything that had happened in the ruler's realm after his clone had merged with it. Even though he was wary of his mysterious master, he still had to kill Zhou Xian. He did not believe that anyone could stop him. No matter how powerful his mysterious master was, he could only be on the same level as the 9 mountains and 8 seas. How powerful could he be? So this is the abandoned land. This is my first time here. Bai Xing passed through the new void corridor and arrived at the 5th continent. He looked around. Why isn't there any astral source? Seems to have been swallowed by that drop of liquid. Senior Shinji, did you do this? That's too much. The abandoned land is also filled with people and they need to cultivate. What did you do? Xianxia interrupted him. It has nothing to do with me. Besides, your mission is to delay Caged Drake and Ichi so that I can kill Zhou Xian. Bai Xing was lazy. He actually did not want to do anything, but since Ancestor Bai had spoken, he had no choice but to go. Besides, Zhou Xiaoxuan's existence was indeed a source of internal strife. If the humans suffered a crushing defeat because of Zhou Xian, then what did the countless years that they had spent guarding the upper realm count for? One person could not replace the big picture. I'm really curious. This Zhou Xian has appeared again? He can even force Senior Shinji to retreat. How impressive, Bai Xing praised. He did not know much about what had happened in the top realm, and Bai Wangyuan had not had the time to tell him. He had only been sent to the 5th continent to assist Xianxia in killing Zhou Xian. Xianxia took a step forward. Go. He was not in the mood to explain things to Bai Xing. This person was too lazy and he even called himself Ancestor Xing. Bai Xing smiled, but he did not mind. He followed Xianxia and took a step forward, directly descending to the endless weave, where they had fought previously. Lu Yin had been waiting here all this time. The moment Bai Xing walked out of the Xinkong corridor, Lu Yin knew that Xianxia had not stopped the technocracy from monitoring them. Lu Yin slowly raised his head and watched as Xianxia and Bai Xing appeared. A vast progenitor's power spread out, enveloping the entire 5th continent and transforming the world. After Xianxia appeared, he glanced into the distance and frowned. He saw countless cultivators gathered, including more than 10 half-ancestors and more than 100 envoys. There were also countless cultivators and astral beasts. What was going on? Was this the 5th continent's power? His expression changed slightly. Even though this power was useless against him, if a progenitor did not act, then even the 4 continents would find it difficult to resist this power. How many half-ancestors did the 4 continents have? Even if they gathered all of the half-ancestors at the back of the battlefield, there would not be enough of them. Where had the 5th continent gotten such a powerful force from? Was this really a wasteland? Bai Xing stared at Lu Yin in a daze. He rubbed his eyes and stared at Lu Yin again. Lu Yin stared back at him and met his gaze. You. Bai Xing was shocked. Xianxia looked at him curiously. You've seen him before? Bai Xing was stunned. Isn't he that brat called you How? Xianxia said, this kid is pretending to be you how to cause trouble. He's instigating internal strife in the 4 continents. Have you seen him before? Bai Xing was speechless. I saw him when I was sleeping in the sect. This kid completed the Realm Beyond Heaven trial and is the 9th Immortal beyond Immortal. The Realm Beyond Heaven trial? That was before Lu Yin had gone to Shenwu Plain. Xianxia was furious. Then why didn't you kill him? If Zhou Xian had been discovered in the frigid Immortal sect, then Shenwu Plain would not have lost so much face. The only reason Xianxia had acted was because Lu Yin had forced Shenwu Plain to leave. Otherwise, the one standing here right now would be Bai Wangyuan, not Xianxia. If Bai Xing had acted at that time, it would have been easy to deal with Lu Yin. Bai Xing was helpless. I don't even know the current Zhou Xian. I've never seen him before, so how would I know that it's him? Xianxia had the urge to slap Bai Xing to death. This bastard. Lu Yin looked at Bai Xing. Senior forefather Xing, I'm indebted to you for not killing me back then. This time I will go easy on you. Bai Xing gritted his teeth. Kid, are you provoking me? I wouldn't dare, Lu Yin replied. He then took out half of the gullion and raised his hand. With my blood I summon the general. Xianxia suddenly attacked and the hellworm charged out from behind Lu Yin, charging towards Xianxia and Bai Xing. Bai Xing was speechless as this was his fault. If he had discovered that this kid was from the Lu family earlier, he would have dealt with him sooner rather than later. However, it did not matter. No matter how much this kid resisted, he would definitely die this time. When he thought of this, his entire aura changed. An unparalleled killing intent burst forth from him, forming an almost tangible ocean that swept out. He raised his hand and a golden staff appeared. Senior Shinji, allow me. He then appeared in front of the hellworm and smashed down with the staff. The hellworm opened his mouth and roared. There was a thump and the hellworm's mouth was forcefully shut. This staff strike had been very heavy and even Lu Yin felt pain for the hellworm. At that moment Qi walked out and raised his serrated blade to slash at Bai Xing. Bai Xing brandished his staff and clashed with the serrated blade. A huge shockwave spread out from the two of them, causing the 5th mainland's stars to undulate. Bai Xing clearly did not have Xianxia's overflowing strength that could suppress the hellworm and Qi, but his killing intent was even stronger than Xianxia's. With Bai Xing blocking the hellworm and Qi, Xianxia was able to free himself up. The divine martial sword domain's domain ancestors' world directly replaced the heavens, and countless blades slashed towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin's eyes turned into runes, and a miniature candle god appeared on his shoulder. He borrowed the rune lines from the general appointment platform to continuously erase the blades and isolate the divine martial sword domain. Xianxia arrogantly said, "It's over." He then waved his hand and a flash of blade light pierced towards Lu Yin. This flash of blade light seemed to carry the might of the entire divine martial sword domain, and Lu Jian's rune lines were unable to erase it or even contain it. Even if Lu Jian himself had become an ancestor, he might not be able to block Xianxia's attack, let alone the general appointment platform. After all, Lu Jian was not a true progenitor. This was Xianxia's true strength, and this flash of blade light caused Bai Xing's scalp to turn numb. The hellworm subconsciously looked over, afraid that the flash of blade light would slash at him. Lu Yin exhaled. The moment the flash of blade light appeared, he knew that he could no longer hide. Since that was the case, then he would bring it on. He raised his foot and took a step forward. In that instant, countless people on the 5th mainland felt the stars tremble. In the distance, many half-ancestors once again felt a familiar sensation. This was the might of progenitor Qin, the might of the various Sirius stars. Lu Yin took a step forward and stepped into the starry sky. His body was covered in a nebula that surrounded the various Sirius stars. He pointed at the blade light with one hand and Bai Xing with the other. Then he glanced at Xianxia. Explode. The stars exploded and the blade light flooded the area. Bai Xing had been using his staff to strike the hellworm when a terrifying explosion of stars suddenly appeared in front of him. What was this? Before he could even react, his body was sent flying by the power of the exploding stars. Xianxia's mind buzzed. The various Sirius stars, this power. Those. Xiaoshang. With a boom, the stars exploded. It was not just one, but one after another as they swept towards Xianxia. Xianxia's surroundings were filled with blade light that swept through the stars in an attempt to break through the various Sirius stars. However, the only thing that was shattered was the divine martial sword domain. Xiaoshang, Xiaoshang. Xianxia roared, his eyes bloodshot. The divine martial sword domain violently distorted. Even ordinary people could see that the starry sky had come to life. They could see blade light filling the sky as well as blade-like creatures. They could also see countless people praying within the blade world. The entire divine martial sword domain had forcefully broken through the various Sirius stars. Chapter 23:33. Lu Yin grunted as blood trickled down the corner of his mouth. He had only borrowed Progenitor Chen's strength, but that did not mean that he was Progenitor Chen. Even Progenitor Chen would not be able to defeat Xianxia so easily. After so many years, Xianxia's power had continued to grow, and even the Fog Ancestor was amazed by his strength. Furthermore, the power that Progenitor Chen had left behind was from the Daoist sect's era. The ancestral world was fighting against the ancestral world, and the divine martial saber domain was constantly being torn apart. Countless saber edges were being shattered, and the starry skies of the fifth mainland were being torn apart. The countless cultivators and giant beasts of the starry sky that had gathered were aghast. What kind of mighty power was this? Even the shockwaves alone could destroy them. Fate Girl Lu Bujing and the others were shocked. This power was extremely strong even in the above sky sect, so how could Lu Yin's enemy be so powerful? Elder Gong was worried. He had seen Sirius shatter. Would Progenitor Chen's power be exhausted by that brat? Lu Yin was worried as well. He stepped on the stars of Sirius, but they shattered one by one. Xianxia was fighting like a madman. Lu Yin was injured, but so was Xianxia. The stars of Sirius exploded, and the divine martial sword domain shattered as well. But Xianxia didn't give up. Xiaoshang, come out. Get the hell out here, roared Xianxia. His divine martial saber domain spread out, trying to find Xiaoshang. Lu Yin gritted his teeth as he knew that he couldn't continue like this. Even if Xianxia was crippled, he would be crippled, and with the power that Progenitor Chen had left behind, it was unlikely that he would be able to cripple Xianxia. Not to mention Bai Xing in the distance. As he thought about it, he immediately took out the Death God's left arm and tried it out. He grasped half of the Go Lian in the Death God's left arm, and in that instant he seemed to see the starry sky come to a standstill as time flowed by. He saw a familiar figure walk out of the river of time and overlap with him as he grasped the Go Lian. It was the Death God. Lu Yin could no longer control himself as his body overlapped with the Grim Reaper's phantom. The Grim Reaper was him and he was the Grim Reaper. Go Lian slowly raised his hand. What he guided out was not only the death chi in his left arm but also Kunzei. At this moment, the divine martial sword region clashed with Sirius Shin. At this moment, countless people felt fear and despair as they felt the power of the heavens. At this moment, even Bai Xing was retreating. At this moment, caged flood dragon covered his head and kept retreating. At this moment, Lu Yin could not control himself, but his body was still moving as he lifted Go Lian. At that moment, Kunzei's deathly aura surged. Then it transformed into a black beam that crossed the cosmic sea and the innerverse, connecting to the endless weaves. The deathly aura crossed the starry sky and was drawn out by Go Lian. It slashed towards Xianxia. Xianxia's expression changed drastically. The power of the Grim Reaper appeared. The Go Lian slashed horizontally. A beam of black light flashed and the death chi disappeared. It was as if nothing had happened. Only the divine martial blade domain had been cut in half. Xianxia spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes bloodshot. Grim Reaper. Lu Yin looked on in shock. A single attack had consumed all of the death energy in the Kuan's swamp. He did not know how the death god had done it, but this was a slash that transcended time itself. The divine martial blade domain disappeared, and Bai Xing appeared behind Xianxia. He grabbed Go Lian and wanted to leave as it would be too late if he didn't. He was afraid that Go Lian would launch a second attack. He wasn't as resilient as Xianxia, and if it were him he would die from the first attack. Only a powerhouse at the level of the 9 mountains and 8 seas could survive this attack. Xianxia and Bai Xing left, and the Kuan swamp's death energy had been completely exhausted. Lu Yin could move again and he hurriedly recalled the Grim Reaper's left arm. He looked at Go Lian with a shocked expression that lingered on his face for a long time. Zhou Xian had actually fused with the Grim Reaper to unleash an attack that had heavily injured Xianxia. In that moment he had felt something strange. It was not just the power of the death energy but also time. He had felt the river of time. When one's strength reached a certain level, did it mean that one could cross the river of time without needing to cultivate? He could not figure it out, but he had felt it. Lu Yin felt a wave of dizziness and he hurriedly dispelled the summon. The death energy in his body was almost completely exhausted and he could not summon air qi at all. The hellworm carefully watched him from afar. Lu Yin's stars of Sirius and Zhou Xian's slash had frightened it, and it instinctively felt that it should not approach him. Lu Yin recalled Zhou Xian and sighed. This battle was over and Progenitor Chen's stars of Sirius had been greatly exhausted. Fortunately, he had been able to heavily injure Xianxia with the Grim Reaper's slash, or else he would not have been able to stop that madman. If he had faced by Wang Yuan or Wang Fan instead of Xianxia, Lu Yin believed that they would not have fought him to the death. Xianxia could only blame himself for having too much enmity with Xiaoshang. Xiaoshang had even stolen Xianxia's mountains and seas. In the words of the Xia family, Xianxia was not fated to inherit the mountains and seas, and it was not that he was unwilling. In reality, how could Xianxia not want to inherit the mountains and seas? No matter how powerful he was still not 9 mountains and 8 seas. Lu Yin wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and waved at the hellworm, who carefully approached him. Lu Yin stood on its head and headed towards where the cultivators were gathered. He quickly arrived. Countless cultivators and astral beasts stared at the hellworm's enormous body, their gazes filled with worship and fanaticism. Although they had not been able to see the battle just now, they could imagine the destructive power that had been unleashed. The might of a progenitor who could casually destroy a universe changed their perception of Lu Yin once again. Nothing could increase one's prestige more than defeating a progenitor. At this moment, there was no hatred or jealousy in the cultivator's eyes, only fanaticism, worship and reverence. "I know what you're all thinking," Lu Yin said as he faced all the cultivators. At the front was a group of half-ancestors, followed by envoys, enlighters, hunters, cruisers, explorers and countless astral beasts. Most of these cultivators were from the 5th mainland, but there were also many from the 6th mainland. Lu Yin's lips curled up in the face of countless fanatical and reverent gazes. That's right. The enemy just now was a progenitor. Countless cultivators held their breaths. Progenitor was an unreachable realm, and it was clearly the end of their cultivation. It was their goal, but they would never be able to reach it. I defeated a progenitor, but that's not what you think. Progenitor is a synonym for invincibility, but that doesn't mean that I'm truly invincible. Lu Yin looked at everyone. Do you know what realm I'm at? 3rd Origin Tribulation. I'm only at the 3rd Origin Tribulation, yet I managed to beat back the ancestor. The cultivators were shocked once again. 3 Origin Tribulations could defeat a progenitor? Not even biographies would dare to write such a thing. I can tell you that our future enemies will be progenitors, but do you need to be afraid? Is there anything to be afraid of? There's me, Lu Yin. 3 Origin Tribulations can defeat a progenitor, and when I become a half-ancestor I can kill a progenitor. With me leading the way, do you need to be afraid? No, someone said. Lu Yin's eyes went wide, and the caged Wurm roared as progenitor power swept out. This power made it difficult for the cultivators to breathe, but it was also a power that protected them. Do you need to be afraid? No. More cultivators shouted. More people shouted. Do you need to be afraid? No. All the cultivators shouted. Even Jiu Yao Ke, Lu Bujing and the other half-ancestors were shouting as well. They formed a momentum that dared to charge and bite even a progenitor. Outside the technocracy's new sky corridor, Bai Xing walked out with Xianxia. Xianxia was heavily injured, and aside from the injuries he had received from fighting Sirius Qin, his biggest injury was on his abdomen. There was a lacerating wound that had almost cut him in half, and there was also a deathly aura around it that prevented it from healing. Even Xianxia's progenitor power could not heal it. Xianxia panted heavily, and every time he breathed, he spat out blood that was tinged with a black deathly aura. Bai Xing smiled bitterly as he looked at the endless weave. He could hear the countless cultivators shouting, and he could feel the unstoppable momentum. The successor of the Lu family is really ruthless. Xianxia's expression was gloomy as he looked at the endless weave. He had thought that he would definitely be able to kill Lu Xiaoxian even if he had to get injured. Who would have thought that Lu Xiaoxian would use Xiaoshang's strength? Xiaoshang. The more he thought about it, the angrier he became. Xiaoshang was the Xia family's greatest pain. He was from the same generation as Xiaoshang and they were almost the same age. When he was young he was from the main branch of the Xia family while Xiaoshang was from a side branch. Back then Xiaoshang had only been his sparring partner and he had even fought for the right to be his sparring partner. However, things had changed. After his parents had died, Xiaoshang had used the 9 clones technique. He had used the 9 clones technique to fight in the starry sky. He had defeated all his peers and Xiaoshang had defeated him. After that he had lost the right to compete with Xiaoshang. He hated and envied Xiaoshang. Therefore, when the mist ancestor had appeared in the starry sky of the trees, he had used the divine sword domain just to let the mist ancestor compare his strength with Xiaoshang's. He wanted to surpass Xiaoshang, but just then Xiaoshang's Sirius stars had appeared. He had gone crazy and wanted to destroy them, not allowing any of Xiaoshang's power to appear, no matter the price. In the end, he had resisted Xiaoshang's Sirius stars, but had been heavily injured by the Grim Reaper's power. Senior Shinji, let's go back. I'll guard this place, Bai Xing advised. Xia Shinji couldn't do anything in his current state. He was also panicking. This was too strange. An emissary could not only summon progenitors, but also use progenitors' power to enslave progenitors. In the end he had even used the Grim Reaper's power. Bai Xing was terrified and he didn't want to do anything. To outsiders, progenitors were like immortals, but only after reaching this level would they realize that progenitors were also humans. They could die and they were afraid of death. Xia Shinji was unwilling, but he still returned to the starry sky of the trees. Guard this place. If Lu Xiaoxian tries to destroy the new sky corridor, tell him that we'll slaughter the remaining members of the Lu family. Bai Xing's expression became bitter. How could he say that? Wouldn't that make him offend Lu Xiaoxian? He wasn't afraid of an emissary, but Lu Xiaoxian was too strange. This kind of person could even defeat 2 progenitors. What couldn't he do? He was too strange and Bai Xing didn't want to offend him. Hopefully Lu Xiaoxian wouldn't come. Xia Shinji returned to the sovereign realm, which was soon shaken. Bai Wangyuan and the others all looked at the injured Xia Shinji in disbelief. They could accept that Lu Xiaoxian had used all kinds of power to defeat Xia Shinji, but they couldn't accept that Xia Shinji had been injured so heavily. This was impossible as Xia Shinji was on the same level as them. The Mist Ancestor and Wuxia had both come out. They hadn't expected this. Chapter 23-34. Xia Shinji explained everything in a low voice. This time not only did Ancestor Qin Xiaoshang but also the Grim Reaper. Hearing this, Bai Wangyuan and the others fell silent. The more silent they were, the greater the murderous intent. I suspect that this still isn't his limit, Xia Shinji said before looking at the Mist Ancestor. Shui, what trump card does Lu Xiaoxian have? The Mist Ancestor pursed her lips. Trump card? Wasn't Xiaoshang's strength the final trump card? Where did such a powerful Grim Reaper's strength come from? She knew that the brat cultivated the Grim Reaper's strength, but no matter how strong the Grim Reaper was, it couldn't possibly injure a progenitor, let alone a progenitor from 9 mountains and 8 seas. This didn't make sense. If the Grim Reaper was so powerful, then what could the Eternals do? She had always been by his side, but even she didn't know where such a powerful Grim Reaper's strength came from. Now that Xia Shinji had said that the brat still had a trump card, she was confused. Wait, the progenitor's sword? When she thought of the sword, her eyes lit up. Bai Wangyuan and the others stared at her and she raised her brows. Why are you looking at me? Are you asking me to deal with that brat? What other trump cards does Lu Xiaoxian have? Xia Shinji asked with a gloomy expression. He had suffered a great loss. Bai Wangyuan and Wang Fan both felt that the Mist Ancestor knew. Her expression had changed too obviously and even Wuxia had confirmed it. He was rather curious about this junior brother of his and he was even more shocked. Master was becoming more and more adept at taking in disciples. No, could it be that Master had secretly taken action? That shouldn't be possible. Master was very powerful and Bai Wangyuan couldn't see it clearly, but Xia Shinji couldn't even tell who had taken action. The difference shouldn't be that great. The Mist Ancestor rolled her eyes. How would I know what trump cards he has? Go ask him yourself. Shi Wei. Bai Wangyuan shouted. The Mist Ancestor provoked. What? Are you threatening me? Wang Fan's expression darkened. Xue, what will it take for you to help us? The mist ancestor laughed and shook her head. Is this your first day meeting me? They were helpless. The more they understood the mist ancestor, the more they knew that she wouldn't betray Lu Yin. Bai Wangyuan glanced at Wuxia. Bai Wangyuan and the others couldn't help, and Bai Xing couldn't help Xianxia. And the mist ancestors only help. I'll have Xian's help. Xianxia's the Reaper. Wuxia looked over. The fog ancestor's expression changed slightly. She had a deep impression of Bai Xianer. Bai Xianer broke through to the progenitor realm? Wang Fan was astonished, but he soon said, that's impossible. With her innate talent, how could we not know about her origin tribulation? Even the most ordinary cultivator would know about it. Bai Wangyuan said in a low voice. Although Xianer has yet to become an ancestral patriarch, she possesses power that no one can predict. Furthermore, she also understands the remnants of the Lu family. She is the most suitable candidate to take action. Xianxia was also very confident in Bai Xianer. Alright, let's try again. I'll join forces with Bai Xing again. I'll personally end Xiaoshang's power. I'll wait for her in the Wang clan. Rest for a few days. The mist ancestor was curious. Bai Wangyuan, do you really have that much confidence in your juniors? Be careful not to get captured and used as a mistress. Bai Wangyuan was confident. When Xianer attacks, she won't fail. The mist ancestor looked at him deeply. He recalled the scene in the Red Garden, and a great deal of dread rose in his heart. Lu Yin was a rather cunning and cautious person. Although he wasn't as smart as Huiwen, he was still capable of toying with the scales. However, she wasn't confident in facing Bai Xianer. That brat had been toyed with twice in the Red Garden and Shenwu Plain, so she didn't have much confidence in him. She should help him out, or at least let him know who he was facing. In the Fifth Mainland's outerverse, where all the cultivators had gathered, countless people had been roused by Lu Yin. The cultivators of the Fifth Mainland had gathered together, and under this momentum, even the most ordinary sentinel dared to charge towards the progenitor realm. However, that was only the majority of the cultivators. There were still some who were rational. Lu Yin wasn't very good at mobilizing morale, and if not for the fact that the progenitor's power was too great and that he had coincidentally repelled it, he wouldn't have been able to mobilize the cultivators of the Fifth Mainland. Among this group of cultivators, the Yu family was the most rational. It seemed like the Yu family was shouting like the other cultivators, but in reality people like Yu Qian, Yu Kursan and Yo Yir were all clear-headed. Even so, they were still rather shocked by Lu Yin's accomplishments. They had never thought that they would one day become enemies with a progenitor, and Lu Yin had actually repelled one. They couldn't imagine the power of a progenitor, and they couldn't even imagine how Lu Yin had repelled it. Not far from the Yu family was the Ku family. Patriarch Ku Pu glanced at the Yu family from time to time. The Yu family had changed. They had actually started to cultivate the same kind of fog energy as they had in the Smokescreen mountain range. The Ku family couldn't understand this, so over the past year the other families of the Seven Courts, the Sirius sect, and the Home of the Gods had all been keeping an eye on the Yu family. They wanted to know why the Yu family had suddenly gained another power. The Yu family knew that they were being watched, but it didn't matter. The Celestial sect was currently suppressing the Fifth Mainland, and no one could act impudently. Even if the Yu family had obtained Ancestor Ku's inheritance, the Ku family wouldn't be able to do anything to them. The Smokescreen mountain range was also keeping an eye on the Yu family. After all, they cultivated the same kind of energy. In Gu Xiao'er's words, the Yu family had recognized the fact that the fog energy was invincible and was preparing to draw closer to them. Gu Xiao'er's words caused Gu Xiao'er to beat him up. In the distance, caged Worm left. Lu Yin left after raising the morale of the group as he couldn't stay here any longer. The four-way scales wouldn't give up, and there might be a third time where a third progenitor would appear. He stroked his cosmic ring. If Bai Wangyuan, Wang Fan or Xianxia came together, that would mean that the Eternals had temporarily stopped, giving the four-way scales a chance to act. Would Bai Wangyuan and the others leave the sovereign realm? Lu Yin sat alone on a desolate planet as he pondered this. At that moment the wireless Gu vibrated. What is it? Dozy, the Yu family has a report. The second Night King's respectful voice traveled over. Speak. Lu Yin remained calm. He hadn't gone to the Yu family yet, but as long as he could resolve this crisis with the four-way scales, he would find a way to use the sticks to locate the Unbounded's headquarters. Daoist you Qian. Just now oh fuck you bastard, you're doing it again. Did Grandpa Zhou offend you? Are you crazy? Activating fate now? Fuck. Chapter 23:35. In the Outerverse assembly area, Destiny's daughter, Skymender, and Starsibyl all spat out blood and looked at each other in shock. Fate has been activated. In the Astral Tree realm, Xianxia sat in the red flower garden as red flowers danced around her. She slowly opened her eyes. Is it time to end this? Just as she was about to stand up, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Her face paled and her eyes were filled with fear. Fate has been activated. In the 5th Mainland's Astral Combat Academy, Lu Yin stepped onto stargazing deck and looked at the silhouettes of time in front of him. He saw images of the past, but they flashed by so quickly that he couldn't see them clearly. His gaze narrowed as he stared at one of the images. The image gradually became clearer, and he saw a pitch-black, boundless cliff that resembled an abyss. What was that on top of the cliff? Just as Lu Yin was about to take a closer look, the image suddenly disappeared. His body was pushed back by an indescribable force, and he only managed to stabilize himself after taking a dozen steps back. His mind kept replaying what he had just seen, but in that moment his memories had vanished. What had he just seen? He couldn't remember and his mind was completely blank. No, this was different from the previous times. He wouldn't forget what he had seen before, but he couldn't remember it this time. What was going on? What had changed? Although he couldn't remember the images, his emotions were still fresh in his mind, as if he had seen something inconceivable. However, he couldn't remember that image at all. He lowered his head and held the Book of Destiny in his hand. Right, the only thing that was different was the Book of Destiny. The Book of Destiny belonged to fate and climbing stargazing deck with it might be different. Lu Yin placed the Book of Destiny on the ground and looked at stargazing deck as he walked up step by step. The Star Master grew anxious. Lu Yin, don't activate fate again. Do you want to end up like the director? The Rain Master, Sand Master, Trial Master and Old Kai all came over to stop Lu Yin, but they couldn't even get close to him with their cultivations. Kid, do you want to be expelled from the academy? Kid, we already said that if you climb stargazing deck again, you won't be a student of the academy anymore. They were afraid that Lu Yin would go crazy like the director, which would be troublesome. With his strength, if he went crazy, he wouldn't just destroy Astral 10 but the entire 5th mainland. Lu Yin looked back with a solemn expression. If I don't climb stargazing deck, I won't be alive. As soon as he said this, the instructors fell silent. The progenitor from before? The Trial Master asked. Lu Yin nodded. I'm sorry, mentors. I have to ascend stargazing tower and fight for a chance to survive. He then lifted his foot and stepped onto stargazing deck. This time none of the mentors stopped him, not even the Star Master. They simply watched as Lu Yin activated his destiny. In an instant the same scene appeared again, but this time he could clearly see a bearded man holding a baby and laughing heartily. There was a gentle woman behind him and there were only the three of them on the screen. Lu Yin's eyes reddened when he saw this scene. He had lost his memories, but the moment he saw this scene he knew that the bearded man was his father and the woman was his mother. A family of three. It was a very ordinary and harmonious scene, something that most people would think would be normal. However, Lu Yin had an extravagant wish. He didn't want to feel the warmth of a family, but he wanted to at least have some memories of it. However, he didn't even have such a warm memory. It was the second time he ascended Star-Picking Tower. Xianxia, Fate Maiden, and Xianxia all spat out blood again. When Lu Yin ascended Stargazing Deck a third time, they continued to spit out blood. The fourth time they were still spitting out blood. Fate Maiden was the first to take it, and she quickly contacted Lu Yin. Daoist, are you activating destiny? Lu Yin calmly replied, that's right. Why? Fate Maiden's face paled as she spat out blood. She spat out 4 mouthfuls of blood in a row, and this was no ordinary spit. Each time she spat out blood she would be severely injured. Even she couldn't take it anymore. Skymender and Starsibyl were the same. Xianxia's legs were weak and he couldn't even walk. Lu Yin solemnly replied, I have my reasons. I have to activate destiny. Fate Maiden anxiously asked, every time you activate destiny will be severely injured. Do you want to activate destiny or rely on it to attack the enemy? She then reacted. There's an enemy in the astral tree who has the Book of Destiny? Previously, Lu Yin hadn't been sure if Bai Xianer had the Book of Destiny. He had only heard rumors and guessed, but after activating Destiny for the third time he was certain. When he activated Destiny for the third time he saw the bloodstains in the Red Garden. Although he didn't see anyone, it was definitely the Red Garden. The bloodstains and the red flowers on the ground contrasted beautifully. Bai Xianer had also spat out blood. Because he was certain of this, Lu Yin activated Destiny for the fourth time. At the same time he would continue to do so. This was basically a mutual destruction, but it wouldn't be him and Bai Xianer, but the Fate Maiden and the others. A great enemy will appear in the astral tree, and this person has the Book of Destiny. I can't fight against them, Lu Yin replied, explaining himself to give Fate Maiden some basic respect. Fate Maiden's expression turned ugly. So you want to activate Destiny to heavily injure her? What about us? You don't want to die and neither does she. Just hold on a little longer. If you can't hold on, she won't be able to hold on either. Her expression turned even uglier at his words. She wanted to say something but nothing came out. If Lu Yin wanted to, he could explain himself to her. If he didn't want to, he wouldn't even need to explain. This was the law of the universe and this was cultivation. It was just like how she had transferred her karma to those innocent people. Those people had died for no reason and she didn't ask their wishes. Lu Yin put down the wireless goo. He didn't feel sorry for Fate Maiden as she had caused too many deaths to transfer her karma. As for Skymender, if he hadn't controlled the absolute path, he wouldn't have known how to deal with it. The only people he felt sorry for were Xianxia and Starsabil. He didn't care about Starsabil's uncertain attitude, but Xianxia was different. After thinking about it, Lu Yin took out his gadget from his cosmic ring. Ever since he had returned to the fifth mainland he had rarely used it. However, Xianxia didn't have a wireless goo and could only contact him through the gadget. He looked at the gadget and saw that it was filled with Xianxia's records. There were dozens of them and Xianxia was frantically trying to contact him. Lu Yin pursed his lips. Should he accept or not? That was the question. In the end, Lu Yin didn't accept. He would apologize to Xianxia in the future as he was already used to it. On an island in the cosmic sea, Xianxia's face was deathly pale. His hands trembled as he continuously pressed the gadget to contact Lu Yin, but he couldn't reach him. Pick it up, you bastard. What sin did your Grandpa Zhou commit to have met someone like you? Are you trying to kill Grandpa Zhou? Hurry up and pick it up. Lu Yin looked at the Book of Destiny on the ground and thought for a moment before picking it up. He continued walking towards Stargazing Deck, and as he took a step forward, the starry sky swirled as countless images flashed by. He discovered that the images he saw with the Book of Destiny and without it were completely different. If he didn't hold the Book of Destiny, he would only see some scenes that were related to him or indirectly related to him. However, when he held the Book of Destiny, he didn't know what he saw at all. After reading it, he completely forgot about it. It was very strange. It was the same this time. Lu Yin took a dozen steps back and his face was filled with shock. However, this shock seemed to be accompanied by confusion. What had he seen? Why was he so shocked? He had fought with Xiaxia before and knew countless secrets of the universe, but he was still shocked. What kind of image could shock him so much? In the cosmic sea, Xianxia spat out a mouthful of blood onto his gadget. He despaired. It's over, I'm going to die. Does that bastard even know what he's doing? It's over. I'm really going to die and no one will even notice. In the outer verse, Fate Lady and the others all spat out blood at the same time. Their faces became increasingly unsightly until they were completely pale. Jiu Yao Zhanlin and the other half-ancestors looked at them strangely, not understanding why they were spitting out blood. Was there an enemy? Only Lu Bujing and a few others knew the reason. Lu Bujing looked at Fate Lady sympathetically and thought back to the era of the Above Heaven sect. This woman had been insufferably arrogant and relied on fate as her backer to run amok across the 6 continents. She was incomparably respected wherever she went, and even progenitors had to be courteous to her, even when she was a guest in the Lu family. Although he and Fate Lady were both leaders of the 12 Elysium Gates, their statuses were completely different. Furthermore, he had been chased down by Fate Lady and had been in a difficult situation for a while. Now that he saw Fate Lady like this, he felt inexplicably happy. This woman had finally received her retribution. Fate Lady suddenly looked at Lu Bujing with a cold gaze. Lu Bujing retracted his gaze and no longer looked at her. Fate Lady wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, but she suddenly spat out another mouthful of blood. Her body swayed and she found it difficult to stand firm. It was the same for Skymender. As for Starsabil, she had already collapsed and had almost fainted. In the red flower garden in the astral tree realm, Xianxia's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. The ground in front of her was dyed red with blood. She was certain that Zhou Xian knew that he could use this method to heavily injure her. No, this can't go on. Otherwise, not only will I be heavily injured, but there's also the possibility of... She hurriedly contacted Bai Wangyuan. In the sovereign realm, Bai Wangyuan was still waiting for the good news that Bai Xian'er and Xiaoxinji had killed Zhou Xian. However, he did not receive any good news. Instead, he received news that Bai Xian'er wanted him to stop fighting. What did you say? Bai Wangyuan looked at the cloud passage stone in disbelief. Bai Xian'er's face was as white as a sheet, and it was obvious that she was heavily injured. Bai Xian'er looked at Bai Wangyuan. Stop or I'll die. Bai Wangyuan did not understand. Why is this happening? Who injured you? Ancestor Bai, stop attacking Zhou Xian immediately. Otherwise, I'm not sure if he'll die, but I'll definitely die, Bai Xian'er said with difficulty. Suddenly she spat out another mouthful of blood, dyeing the cloud passage stone red. Bai Wangyuan was shocked. Bai Xian'er was too important to the frigid immortal sect. She was practically the future flag of the frigid immortal sect that controlled the fifth mainland. Her innate talent, methods, cultivation and intelligence were all top-notch. Zhou Xian had displayed an extremely monstrous innate talent, and Bai Xian'er could do the same. They could not bear the threat that Zhou Xian posed, and the frigid immortal sect could not bear the loss of Bai Xian'er.